your
here.
gavel, that's, they call us for attention here. That's what it's for, there you go.
Knock on wood.
When I nod my head, you hit it.
I'd like to start the meeting, 7:02. We have Raj, who is gonna be a little late, he's tied up with a selectman at the moment, so we'd like to wait to start the public hearing until he's here. So, we will do some other business before that, and he should be here when, do you think?
10 minutes?
10 minutes?
Roughly.
Okay. So we'll do other business until that time, and then we'll start the public hearing. So number one, Holy Cross. You have an update for us, Vinnie?
Yeah, I reviewed, they gave us another stack of plans, and within that stack, there were 3 that were noted as being as-built plans, but none of them were stamped. There was also a plan showing the revised septic system, because I guess they had to move the septic system location, and that's what the Board of Health required, but it wasn't an as-built plan, and it wasn't stamped either. So what I was gonna do is I was gonna contact Leonard Raymond, who is the Director of Capital Construction Facilities,
Okay.
and let him know what we need. But we did get a certification on the as-built from their engineer saying it was in general compliance with the design.
Okay. So you know exactly what they're missing, and
I will contact them and ask for stamp plans, yes.
Where's that guy from?
Holy Cross,
No, Leonard Raymond?
Holy Cross, he's from
Oh.
College of the Holy Cross.
Oh, he's the capital something or other.
Well, yeah, it's the Director of Capital Construction and Facilities.
okay. Done with that, then we have solar panel array project. We're gonna review the as-built plan, which is here.
Oh, yeah.
We open these up.
Yes, sir.
These, these are identical. Is that correct?
I think so. Put that on top, so.
And this is what we've been waiting for,
Yes.
right?
Does it say as-built plan? Yep,
As-built plan,
as-built, it's stamped.
stamped. Half of these bushes are dying.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I wasn't sure if there were any notes on there, but generally it shows where they put the array and
Yep.
the fence, where the fence is located.
Chain link fence.
Cool.
What's our next step?
Any comments?
This is an as-built to finish up the project,
So what do we
is
do?
it stamped and have a letter?
Do we need
Are we gonna
We got a
waive the
cover
letter?
letter, yeah.
You got a letter?
accept, or,
We
But
have
this,
water?
we got a stamp certification, yeah.
That says it conforms with the original?
Generally conforms to the design, yeah. We had that a year and a half ago, and then we asked for the plan, and they said, well, we haven't got the plan, so we put the trees in. So we now, I think we got the full package.
so what do we say? I like these teaching moments, Vinnie, so, but
I don't know, we've
do
never
we-
done
do
this
we
before.
accept?
So we recommend to the building inspector to issue a certificate of completion, because the as-built is received.
Is received and approved, or do we not have to approve it?
Well, as long as it's an as-built and it is in compliance, we can accept it. So we can then forward one copy to the building inspector.
And we don't show any sign of accepting it? I mean, I'm just, lots of people might just say, I submitted it, and so it's done. How do we signify that we accepted it to them?
It's a motion. It's
Oh,
an action of the
okay.
board.
It's a motion that we deem it.
Do we accept the
Acceptance
plan?
Also?
That we
Right.
recommend
The-
a certificate of completion. And then that letter goes into the file.
Certificate of completion, is that a
And
thing,
does
or
it
is
matter that I haven't
occupancy?
been part of this project
No,
prior to
it
this
doesn't
one?
matter.
Okay.
In the bylaw, somewhere in section 3.6 something.
We might have taken that part out, because nobody ever finishes their projects.
So the building inspector, building inspector shall issue a certificate of completion when all construction has been performed and all other requirements have been met in compliance with the approved site plan. A copy of the certificate of completion will be filed with the planning board. So we're set,
Okay.
we're
Motion.
recommending, cause he hasn't been on this project at all, and in general, they don't deal with the site stuff. So we review it for the site, as long, VHB does the review as well. We didn't do that on the towns, but usually that's the way it works out. But we review the site, and then we send a note to the building inspector saying everything is okay, issue the certificate of completion. And then
Okay.
you issue and this site doesn't need a certificate of occupancy, cause it's
Right.
solar array. But
And
that's
did she
the
finish the
process.
motion?
So I move to recommend that, the building inspector issue a certificate of completion for the solar panel array project.
We have a street address on the
Yeah.
temple.
It doesn't give an address here, it is on, well, it's
On
on
Temple
It's on
Street.
Temple Street, there's no number.
At the old,
On Temple Street, south of Pierce Street.
There we go,
Yeah.
South Pierce Street.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Did you say we had a letter written?
There, in the file, there's they sent
We have a
A
letter
letter.
from them.
Yeah.
So we have to
From
write
them.
the,
so we,
Oh, okay.
the recommendation to the
yes,
building.
we have done a couple of those in the past.
We could have templates.
Can Melanie do it?
Why would you want her to do it?
Seems pretty good.
right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Stop.
Why are we talking about Melanie in the third?
And then
person?
deliver it to all our houses?
Yeah, right. As soon as it's done.
Pushed it, that's it, over the limit, right?
Oh, we've been over,
I'll find one.
off the rails.
There we go.
Fine, well, I can do it.
Okay,
They can-
Melanie could keep
Awesome,
templates
great.
and get us to do them too, but you know.
I agree.
it's good to see something
Yeah.
completed.
Well,
Right.
it offers some continuity to boards, you know, if we have templates that are saved, that we
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah, that,
kind
yes,
of
Yeah.
that's
slot
true.
in the,
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll send them through to one of you, because you'll
Right.
work on them, yeah.
Nice to see
Right,
something.
you have to send it to us every single time, too.
Very
Yeah, I
good.
know.
Could you send the templates out?
Yep, John's done a good job with that.
Fewer things on our plate. All right, Roger's still not here.
Well, the
Village
next one's
Center.
easy.
What do we have for the
update.
Village Center zoning update?
Village Center zoning update, I sent the draft version
Did.
off a week ago or so.
I opened it and looked at it briefly.
The comments have been rolling in again, but I haven't gotten any.
Were you overwhelmed by
And
comments?
They haven't come from, I just got an email from Eli over at CMRPC.
Yeah.
He said he'll be able to get all the stuff done if we get comments to him by the 22nd.
Okay, so
He's gonna
you're,
get back to us
so
on
you're
one
still
item.
welcoming comments?
Absolutely, on
Okay.
the,
Yeah.
on most current version, because there were a
Okay.
lot, I think I
There were a
got rid
bunch
of
There were a
a
bunch
page,
of changes, yeah.
page
I
and a
thought,
half is
I
missing.
thought, the only thing, like I said, I opened it and I briefly read it, I thought that there were more definitions that maybe we had talked about that were not
That's possible.
in there.
I-
Oh, so we're missing
That
definitions?
were, yeah, like we had talked about defining a couple of things, cause it was like, well, what is that and what is that and.
Oh,
Oh, that's
and
true.
That's
I
a good
didn't-
idea.
I
You
did not
can-
see any additions in there.
okay.
During the
Um,
commencement
I
speech, I'll
can't-
give you something. to
Yeah,
say.
right, that's right, that's right. When I'm sitting down there in the back.
It's hot, you're sitting there.
So in the next few
You're good.
days, by the weekend maybe, that
Yeah.
would be good.
Okay, awesome. So, new business? We have a new development across from the 190 exit.
It's,
Oh, yes, that's right.
it's not.
But that's
in
Worcester.
Worcester.
Yeah.
It's
Worcester.
Worcester. It was just for us to, yeah,
It's up for us to, yeah. Do we do anything with that?
We attend all the meetings.
We can
Right.
send comments.
Actually, we can go to the meetings, we can't even vote in the meetings.
no,
No, this,
all we can do is say, like,
we're like in a
hey.
butter,
yeah.
and that's it.
But in a butter that's not a voting whatever. Like, you're not even a constituent of the people that are listening.
Looking at butter. Looking at butter,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
not voting.
Yep, but the situation is that they're proposing a gas station, a big gas station, and a couple of pretty good-sized buildings. I don't
Right
remember how.
across
As if we
from
don't have
another
those
gas
businesses
Right across from
within 10
Like, that are
feet as
right
it is.
there. I agree.
Well,
every
everyone comes
single-
off
every-
the highway and they.
Every
gas.
single business that they were proposing is available within a half a
Yeah.
mile of that
Yeah.
location.
Yes.
Yes,
Dave. At
Right off the end of
At the
190.
end of the exit from 190?
right, like
That
right,
wooded area?
Next to
right
Steve's.
that
across,
Mass,
yeah.
Mass DOT used to own it. They've
Still
been,
own it.
they still own it?
I've heard they still own it.
This,
And-
this fellow called me about 8 months ago,
Oh,
and I hadn't heard anything, and it's funny, I went by there and said, gee, I haven't heard anything, and then the next day, I get that message. Yeah, I'd be concerned about 2,600 car trips per day.
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
Right.
And so it's on a 6-acre parcel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
and really,
Do we wanna
Only
draft
one
it?
way in
What
and
are- So
out.
what concerns do
plus
we
the
have?
highway, I don't know,
Traffic. I'd like to see the traffic study,
yeah.
to know where they think the traffic will be coming from.
Steve's.
I suspect that
They're talking about putting in a
more would be
gas
coming
station
from
office.
the highway or Worcester than West Boylston, but you know,
Doesn't,
don't know.
right.
Yeah, this fellow called me about 8 months ago and asked if we had any big developments coming in that might affect,
Oh,
traffic going to that location.
Gotcha,
Um, You know, it's
Yep.
probably part of their traffic study or whatever, trying to estimate where the cars are coming from.
they're gonna put it in there, they better put some good stuff in there, just saying. How about
Trader Joe's in or
Starbucks?
something,
Yeah, Trader
I
Joe's
don't
there,
know if
that
it's
would be
much
good,
space.
that'd be a good one,
so,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
anyway.
So traffic is the only concern?
That's my biggest concern.
yeah, I would agree.
Anybody else have any concerns about that development? Roger, talking about
No.
the development in Worcester right over the line.
I mean, it did say that, I'm gonna say there was some wetlands areas and things like that.
Oh, yeah, just
mentioned in
on the other side of the street
But
behind it.
mentioned in the thing, in the,
Yeah,
On Worcester
Statement.
Street.
yeah. I
They
mean,
circulate plans to you guys, or no?
There were sketches with the E and F.
In there.
They indicate access onto West Boylston Street?
Yes.
Does it seem reasonable what they're proposing?
Oh, they're squeezing a lot into a small space, but
Hopefully it'll be.
what everybody does.
it was like
Hopefully it'll be
100
at
and
the traffic
something.
light.
How many
Yes.
parking spaces did it say?
Oh, yeah.
100 and
I'd assume they have to re-engineer that whole intersection if they're gonna,
Yeah, they have to change it.
Yeah, well, they're gonna make
It
it
has to be
four-way.
four-way.
We've gotta have a,
Is
Left
plans,
turn.
yeah, right off the exit.
is this
Straight
package
into
here?
it.
No, I think it's
Over there?
one of,
Oh, that
we
right
have-
there,
Yeah,
right there.
that's it. Green International did the
oh,
traffic and. But it's, I mean, it's a sizable development.
oh, yeah.
That's a whole book.
So, we have the ability to attend these meetings and ask questions?
Yes, we can attend, ask questions, ask for additional information, or raise our concerns for them to
That's it.
address them.
Where are they meeting held?
Well,
The
this-
meeting was held at the site last Monday.
This-
Or,
There's
two
two
days.
books. This is the traffic impact, so our traffic questions would be answered in here.
or, yeah,
So this is environmental. Just gonna see if
When's the
there's a
next,
plan.
do you know when the next meeting is?
I don't know. Usually they hold one public hearing. This is an ENF, so they're gonna hold a public hearing, and what's the process there? You have 30 days or so to send in comments?
I think it's 30 or 60, I forget. Actually, my associate Pat Dunford is in the back of the room. Pat, do you know? the
I
ENF?
think 30 to 45, I'm not for sure as
Yeah.
well. Only one public meeting though.
Right.
So, but we get notified of all the public hearings, don't we?
This was it, yes. You get one, that's it. So
Yeah.
You get one public hearing and this is it, or it's a meeting to review everything, the conditions on the site. And it's an environmental notification form. It's not the permitting for the planning board or any of the other boards.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So it's just the kind of initial,
So there
this
will
is
be
where we're
other
visiting
public
the-
hearings then.
Yes, for other
Other
boards
boards.
and agencies, yeah.
Oh, this says they will impact 1,400 or 1,500 square feet of wetlands, and they plan to do a better than one-to-one replication. The wetland replication area is 1,700 square feet, is proposed to be located adjacent to the isolated wetland impacted, as shown in attachment C-C1, but I have to find that now.
We don't really worry usually about wetlands.
That's not our job, right? That's,
Concom should be on that. They got notified also. But it's a wetland in Worcester, so they have no jurisdiction.
Right.
Is DCR,
Yes,
so it abuts DCR property.
it doesn't abut DCR property, but it flows to DCR, and DCR is across Worcester Street.
Right across from the exit.
It's at the headwaters of Gates Brook, yes, but it's, Worcester Street is between the DCR property and this site, or a portion of this site.
Okay. Well, we can review this in the meantime.
Yep. And I can draft comments. We have at least till our next meeting to draft
Yep,
comments.
okay. Raj is here. I recognize you from the signs.
Alright.
Oh,
good. That's you?
Yeah. It is,
Let me put sign out to your place.
I did.
Let's go, keep it moving.
I just didn't want a sign, electronic sign with moving letters.
I'll take one.
7:19. Do we have the notice for the public hearing?
I probably
Yeah.
do.
You do.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, May 8th, at 7 o'clock at the West Boylston Town Hall for a site plan review, special permit, and stormwater management permit application as required in the zoning bylaws, section 3.6, submitted by McCarty Engineering on behalf of Harmony Mass for the proposed construction of a 4,500 square foot building with associated site improvements located on 111 Shrewsbury Street, West Boylston, Mass. Any interested person is invited to attend this meeting, at which time you'll be given the opportunity to be heard. Copies of the application are available for inspection at the town clerk's office, whose hours are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 4, Wednesday, 9 to 7, and Friday, 8 to 2. Paul Anderson, Chair, West Boylston Planning Board, and the run dates in the Telegram and Gazette are April 24th and May 1st.
And tear
And-
sheets?
John. Tear sheets and green cards. Do you have that stuff handy, or will?
I don't have the green cards there, we do have them,
Okay.
they're all at the office, and I obviously didn't grab them, so.
We'll get those at the next batch.
Yep, okay.
I could bring them tomorrow, if someone's in town hall.
Well, that's fine if you drop off the town clerk's office.
As long as it was done.
It was done, absolutely.
And do you have the tear sheets from the newspaper? Some receipt of.
We have,
Yeah, just, drop them off and print them.
Okay, great.
So Brian Marchetti, McCarty Engineering, here on behalf of Harmony of Mass. As you just read, we're here to permit a development at 111 and 113 Shrewsbury Street. The two parcels at the corner are being combined into one, to be a zoning compliant lot that exceeds an acre. We submitted the site plans to you for a site plan review and for a special permit as required by your zoning regulations. The proposed project here is to, as I said, combine the two lots to develop a 4,500 square foot building for use as a recreational marijuana dispensary. The improvements to the project include, beyond the building, include the parking improvements, landscape improvements, utility improvements, to service the building, and stormwater. We obviously have a history of this whole surrounding parcel with you guys. We just permitted back in February, 6,800 square foot building to the rear of the lot, and a 16,800 square foot building immediately to the south of this development. The 6,800 square foot building is currently under construction, but this building here we're holding off to maintain a parking field of 92 spaces for temporary parking, with the history of, or the recent history of these facilities opening up in Massachusetts. Clearly, there's been an unknown about parking and queuing and issues like that, so we have ample space here available to park vehicles if need be.
You said 90-something?
So the current proposed project requires 15 spaces. and we're providing 21 here, and there's an additional 92 available here in this lot. Right now, the whole lot is currently regrinds, so it's all paved right now.
It's paved.
Well, it's regrinds, it was, and the stormwater facilities for these are designed for the same footprint. So this footprint is gonna be the exact same footprint as the pavement and building that was permitted for the 16,800 square foot building. So the stormwater facility that's existing in the baseball field was sized for a portion of this. And the proposed underground detention basin that's in the driveway here to access both these lots was sized for the exact same square footage. So with this proposed stormwater facility going in the existing one on the backside of the baseball field, there won't be any additional stormwater required to mitigate the flow as well. It's a trade-off in the building. So, we submitted these plans back in April, March or April, and at the time, go through the utility plan first. So this is the layout. There's plenty of ample snow storage areas. We have sidewalks coming from the overflow parking area here back through the facility. We have bituminous sidewalks that ring the facility here, the parking field, for people parked on the backside to get here safely.
Where's the entrance to the building?
The entrance to the building is it's right here, on the southwest corner, southeast corner of the building. It's right here in the middle. So the entrance will be here. I have the floor plan here. I can show you the whole thing's gonna look like. So the main entrance will be here. This will be the retail area up in the front of the house, and the exit's right here. And the whole back house, the facility is all office space, storage, and,
What's the presentation to the street? I mean, what does it look like?
I have a plan here as well that you'll be able to see. So, you've got, this one you're looking at. So here's a traffic queuing plan that was required.
All the way down?
So the queuing plan was required as part of the submittal. In meeting with police and fire, they wanted to limit access to the site, or egress from the site to Hartwell Street. So, plan here shows access at both entrances, so here to the temporary parking field, here as well to access the parking field and parking here, and then exiting the
That's
facility.
from Sewsbury Street, right?
This is from entering from Shrewsbury Street,
Sewsbury Street.
but exiting out from Hartwell.
Oh, okay.
So leaving the parking area here, you know, we'll have a left turn only, so we'll have to come out and exit to Hartwell Street. But these are the details
So
that we'll.
The parking wise, can they park anywhere in the parking lot?
They can
You have
park.
it's an open parking lot for the other businesses and this,
Yes.
they can park anywhere.
It's open parking in here. As part of this facility, when it's constructed, there's, the parking in here was designated for that. And the parking for the rear building has adequate parking at that facility for, this is gonna be the, Folks Jackson business up here.
Can they park there?
I don't,
Why
I don't
not?
know what kind of restrictions would be there. If it's an open parking space, you know, you can't.
Is it gonna be lined? You said it was just regrinds and temporary? or-
Right now, it's just regrinds and temporary. We're showing line striping on the plan to show that we can adequately fit 92 spaces according to the specifications of a standard parking space. But, you know, I don't think there's a plan, at least at the current time, to stripe anything until, you know, we know it needs to be in the overflow.
I mean, if they're trying to control the traffic though, you're gonna have to have something so
Some
that,
sort of straight, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it will have to be some sort of variance of striping, yes, yeah. And that could certainly be a condition or something that we discuss if it's required.
I mean, if they were concerned enough to not want all the exit over there,
Mhm.
I mean, you're gonna have to do something so that people aren't just cruising around and come out this entrance on the sides.
So signage will be proposed as part of this.
Okay.
Sure.
But what about the ones parking along the entry coming in? There's still on the left there.
In here?
How are they gonna know? They can't just back out and go right out with the way they came in.
I guess signage, it's just gonna have to be.
Would it make
signage.
sense to make those on an angle? Angle parking in, so it's, you tend to go
It
back out.
could be something to
and then
consider,
go
but with this in the final condition, if this is, in the future, when this is hopefully over, parking is not needed anymore after it settles down, sales settle down here, this parking here is designated for that building,
And you could be striping or
oriented the
something.
same way. So, if it's just a striping exercise, it certainly could be.
Isn't it the parking is the big issue? When all the meetings, people are asking about the parking. So do you think 21 parking would be enough?
So that's why he's got all
Well,
these.
they have
No,
92
that's why
spots.
we
But
have
we are
it.
not planning to stripe those things, right? That
But
lot?
this is going to remain a parking field until the town, we come to an agreement with the town and the owner, I don't know exactly how it'll be worked out, but until the town says that, this parking is no longer needed.
And our requirements require the spaces to be lined, so
So
it'll be lined, it's just,
Yeah.
we just need to do that, it's minimal for the project.
Sure.
Otherwise it'd be anarchy.
And so our bylaws only require 15 parking spaces for the use you have proposed?
So proposed use. So the breakdown for proposed use is office areas, one space per 500 square feet, and retail is one space for 250. So with the office and retail breakdown, it requires 15 parking spaces, and the layout as we showed is 21. Plus, if you include these spaces on the backside, which I didn't include in the count for this property, because they're off the property, they're part of this development's property, there'd be an additional 13 spaces, so we've got 34.
So that makes sense. The only thing I'm questioning, I can kind of see a dark line there, that's the property line, even
This
though.
dark line here is
So the
property.
coloring isn't the lot.
No, the color
is-
was, no.
That makes sense, but I just, okay. And there's gonna be some kind of agreement for the parking that's within the 10-foot setback on the other lot? Cause it's not allowed.
This parking in here?
If there's parking within 10 feet, it's not allowed unless there's some kind of a shared parking facility, which,
Well, this is
looks like it
outside
is.
of the, it's outside of the side yard setback, so all that parking, curbing, everything's.
Or it is beyond 10 feet.
It is
Okay.
beyond 10
okay,
feet.
then that
10 feet
answers
from the
that.
property line, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yeah, so that's good, okay,
It's
I think-
all outside of the parking setback.
so that's fine, don't worry about that.
So. Utility wise. This plan shows you the stormwater facility that's being installed as part of this development. This will be constructed as part of this project, so we can control and mitigate flows from the proposed temporary parking area, as well as the driveway. And then this stormwater facility here is a low-grade infiltration basin that will control the stormwater flows from rooftop parking area associated with this project. Test pits were conducted for these basins, the basin outfit, and this basin as well. I have that data, it wasn't included in the drainage analysis, and that was one of BHP's comments, but they were done back at the end of March.
What's that one for?
This one?
No, the other one.
This?
Yeah.
This is for the development of this property. So this building,
Oh, that's not there yet.
that's not there yet.
Okay.
The driveway, all comes back from catch basins to this structure, this underground filtration basin.
Okay.
So we literally used the footprint of the proposed building and parking area for this parking area.
Okay.
So the impervious is exactly the same, so the stormwater facility can handle the exact same flows.
But with the regrinds, you don't do anything with that, do you? That's not considered impervious, regrind?
Yeah, it is. That's why they use it.
Well,
It's impervious. Unless they get some special mix, it's.
yeah, the regrinds are considered impervious, it's
Oh, yeah.
reclaimed pavement,
Okay.
it's, it'll be graded the same way to get to the catch basin down.
So that's gonna be installed?
This will be installed.
Okay.
Is there a time frame for the discontinuation of that auxiliary parking lot?
Of this,
Yeah, in other words, when would you discontinue that parking and start building a building there?
I think it's gonna be a fluid agreement with the town, because it's one of those things where nobody knows how much parking we really need. It was a big question mark with
and nobody knows how long
Yeah, so
the
once,
crowds will be there, you know?
once the crowd settle down, which has happened,
Hudson, Hudson's seen 81 cars a day, which is less than half of what they predicted.
So it's just
Yeah.
as we go,
Yeah.
and the town and you have to agree to it, okay?
Yeah, so I think it's gotta be some sort of condition that's agreed to with the town.
But there's no set rules, in other words.
You guys can, you could put conditions on that,
Right,
based
we
on
can-
when you think, or I've seen in other municipalities, they actually defer a lot to the police chief and his determination that things are flowing safely and additional parking isn't required or additional details aren't required and so forth. So you could condition it when the police chief feels that parking seems to be adequate and issues seem to be safe, that parking could be discontinued. Or you could ask them to come back to the board. There's a lot of different ways you could phrase a condition when you guys are ready to talk about that.
All right.
Would you be able to, if it turns out that you need that much parking, would you forego that other building and just leave it parking?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end
Yeah,
of the
that's a
day,
good business, right?
No, I know, but I mean, I'm just wondering if part of your plan is eventually this isn't gonna be there, this is gonna be a building.
I mean, eventually, yeah, absolutely, we'd like to have this building, but, I mean, until.
I mean, if there's enough business there,
Yeah, well, keep in mind, we got a baseball field too, so, I mean, we also have the pier slot.
Yep.
There's additional, I think there's probably 50 parking spaces on that lot as well. Just in case we need it.
might be able to
Plenty of
rearrange.
parking.
50 available, we haven't seen a plan with 50.
Well, we're
That's
not
because
proposing it.
We're not.
We're just saying,
Just in case,
Yeah.
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
Rob owns his property now, you can see this pavement line back here. It's a big area that's impervious, it's paved, it's currently served by catch basin, so we could do nothing but put striping on this lot right now and, you know,
Then it's
maybe
parking.
provide a sidewalk or something to get people from here over to it, but it's already impervious.
Just what you just brought that up, since we've said it in the past, I work for the DCR, this is not a
Oh,
budding
right.
DCR property
No,
anymore,
it's not.
right? It's other, and it's okay that I'm making comments and working on this. You could have the other four and not me. So,
Yeah, if anybody insists on Vinnie recusing himself from this hearing, if anybody has an objection, otherwise he'll continue.
So it would be you, if you were okay.
I cannot object.
You,
You can object.
You
if
can,
want.
you can ask them.
you can draft a
Yeah,
Submit
she
the
says-
objection in writing.
You have to go over there and be a citizen. An owner. Can we bring up the resounding, last meeting's comments about smell, and that they were very, very concerned about that?
Before you get into that, just the drainage question,
Okay.
You were looking at drainage, how it was flowing. You had said, I think, that, it's got asphalt grindings down there now in the lot. When you did your calculations, you did it based on natural conditions, cause our bylaws require it to go from like a natural state to whatever you're proposing, even if you went in there and cut all the trees down and paved it 5 years ago, the bylaws still require it to go from a natural condition to what's proposed.
Yeah,
So
so-
that's the way it was done, the
Is the way it
calculations.
was done as part of the original project, as part of the project permitting this and the permitting back was all done. So,
Yeah, you can get your, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, well, just other utilities, we've received comments as part of the previous project about where to service the electric from. So we permitted a transformer over here to, and we stubbed up the property line here, so electric will pull from the street in the front. Water department, provided comments to us about what's available in, Shrewsbury Street, so we're feeding on the same services as Shrewsbury Street. And then, you know, like I said, stormwater wise, it's all being handled here. We've got a gas main on Hartwell Street that we're tying into, so far, all the comments we've received, really was only water. And, so that's really it for utilities. We're tying into the same outfall as both of these basins here in the existing drain network. So all of that will be installed as part of this project.
Do you need to go to Conservation Commission, or you're far enough away?
Conservation Commission did make a comment that they hadn't seen the project, but the 100-foot buffer zone's way back here. We're well outside of conservation's jurisdiction, so there's no reason that I.
What are those dash lines, the heavy?
This dash line here is the 400-foot watershed protection act line.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
We're well outside of the conservation jurisdiction.
All right,
Before we get into this.
all right.
I just want to fill in the backstory here. At our last meeting, we had some folks here who have, in a citizen's petition, put a warrant on the town meeting to either ban marijuana establishments in town or ban them in the industrial zone. And in that discussion, they had a lot of concerns about buildings and marijuana establishments. So that's the backstory to this and Mark's question.
And, and a little bit more to that is, you're in the, is in commercial?
Yeah, they are allowed.
So it doesn't actually affect you right away, but they're,
The business industrial line does cross through the lot, so a portion of this is
Yeah.
industrial, but not.
but that, so we brought that to their attention, they didn't seem to mind, cause this is a retail, not a grow. But they're very concerned about the smells that are emitted from these marijuana facilities. And that was their,
Not
It's
just-
dispensary,
not
growing.
growing. It's a growing
This is-
company.
but their main thing was growing, but I mean, if you could be aware of any, whatever,
We wouldn't have-
smells
We
and,
wouldn't have enough product.
They were very concerned about the
I think
impact
it's
to
in
the
the
neighborhood,
cultivation.
the smell. the
okay,
walk
I just
through
don't
the
want them to be
neighborhood, concerned
blindsided
about-
when they,
What's that?
I just wanna bring it to your attention, I don't
No,
want you
yeah.
to be surprised when 100
When
seniors
these-
come
these folks were
rolling in.
very-
When is town meeting?
May 20th.
May 20th.
Was that
When
Monday
did-
night?
When did they file for the warrant?
Like just last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the public hearing was our last meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it was very recent, you know.
So they proposed a general zone, a general bylaw
Huh?
to prohibit all marijuana use in town, or whatever the.
That one would affect you.
This is what I,
And then their zoning was for no marijuana
In an
within the
industrial
industrial
zone.
district.
And
So
these,
they did both,
yeah, and these are towards the end of the town meeting, I think they're 25
25
and
and
26.
the last, yeah.
The last two articles, being a citizen's petition, they go last. There was a lot of concern about all the impacts, traffic, odors, and we tried to have a good conversation, understand what they were concerned about. So there are some folks, mostly from the two.
Yeah, the place right, the senior
Angel Brook,
centers right,
Hillside.
We've met with those folks.
Yeah.
And their main concern is the cultivation proposed on 100 Hartwell.
right behind their
Right
place.
there behind
Right.
them, right there.
Right.
So, I mean, the cultivation
Yeah.
does have an odor. We're not cultivators, we're. it's a
Okay.
dispensary.
But yeah, as Mark said, just to make you aware that
That's
these
out
folks have these concerns.
There's a grandfather clause also, though.
We did tell them that too, if your
Oh, yeah.
permit
If
is
we're
requested,
Right, if we're ahead of schedule and everything, I mean, they might be able to stop future ones, but.
right, we were telling them like the zoning that's in place when you submit your application is the zoning in place. So, I don't know, it's a, it's a legal question for,
Again, it's not up to us, it's up to
no,
the.
it's a legal thing.
Up
We
to
were
the
told that we
agency.
couldn't answer any legal questions. The town council will be at the town meeting to answer those questions officially, so,
Back to this issue.
yeah. back to this.
Just wanna make you aware, that's all.
so. Landscape plan was submitted, shows all the landscaping that's gonna be done as part of this, part of the screening for the parking area as well. Low profile on the street, things that meet the bylaw, so, this was also submitted as part of the package. and-
What are your shade trees? What type of trees are your shade trees?
Shade trees are,
You need so many for each parking, for each, I think, 10 or 15 parking spaces.
landscape architect, so those are spruce. Street trees, crab apples.
We just, there's a requirement in the bylaw when you have more than 30 parking spaces, I think, you need to have, I think, a shade tree for every 10, within 10 feet of every 10, so.
Okay, well, these are all,
They're usually right along the edge, so it's not a big deal. But I just don't wanna see cherry trees or, the Bradford pear trees, which are pretty, but it's not a shade tree, so. Just to be sure, checking on that.
What do we consider shade trees?
Like a tree that'll grow higher than 30 feet, so you get shade.
Okay.
And what is the building, the people drive by and see, does it look like a quaint colonial or an industrial building?
Colonial marijuana dispensary, yeah.
Yes.
That's great. Ye old
Ye olde
marijuana
marijuana
dispensary.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we can say, I'm just,
So, from Shrewsbury Street, as we're gonna see, it's on clapboard siding, there's a stone veneer, runs along the full, bottom of the building. And then this is from, the entrance, so I showed you there's a double door entrance
Yep.
in the front, the same thing, clapboard siding with stone veneer trim. The layout of layout, the interior of the building, this is the entryway. So you step into you come in through the double doors here, the vestibule, reception area here, the window. Then you come into the waiting area, and then this is the retail area. Here's the sales counters, the retail area here, bathrooms, and this is all locked, facility behind. The bathrooms in here, basically coming through here, and you go to the exit, back
Oh, that's the exit, okay.
Yeah. So the whole back of facility here includes utility closets, break room, conference, office, and then the vault, which is accessible from the back of the house and the sales area. And then security room and computer server. So everything on the backside of here is all, I mean, the whole facility is secure, but patrons come in and get access to the front reception area and sales and retail. So it's pretty easy flow in and out. The security plan was submitted for review. We have the architectural plans now, so I have, submitted how many copies we need to the town for review. Green International did a transportation and traffic analysis. That was submitted to town and VHB. We did receive comments, last week from VHB. So I've responded to comments. I brought some with me here just to go through, and I'll distribute them to everybody, and, all the revisions we're gonna make, we'll work with Wayne in the next week to get them, but we think we'll be able to wrap up all of Wayne's comments, incorporate them in the plan, by early next week, get them in one place so they can be reviewed, and we can come to some sort of consensus before the next meeting. So,
That would be a good time.
Yeah.
is there something special we gotta do, knowing that this is, the use is the recreational marijuana? Do we have to get sort of the certification from the state so that we know?
We have that.
Yeah,
so
I mean, as part of the approval.
As part of our site plan review, there's no additional requirements, we just have site plan review to follow. There's a zoning bylaw that was put in place, and I think the building inspector is enforcing that. I'm not sure of that regulation.
Enforcing that they have state approval?
That, the process that was listed in there to follow,
That's the building inspector's job, okay.
I think.
I thought there was something else that we had to do.
You guys do have a lot of requirements in the zoning about DPH requirements that they have to submit stuff that's supposed to at least provide copies to you guys so that you know they've done it, and that it's been.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of that. I thought that's all it was
In
in our new bylaw.
sections 3, sections, yeah, it looks like section 3.
Okay.
yeah, 312, I think is all.
Alright, so that's the only on that.
It's just like the double checks to make sure that the
Sure.
approvals are in place before we approve the use.
That's right.
I think is all it is.
We, so the applicant received notification, on May 7th, stating that this email acknowledges that your marijuana retailer application of the intent packet was submitted to the Cannabis Control Commission, so it's currently under review, Cannabis
Okay.
Control Commission.
Okay.
They've assigned the tracking number for it, so it's in process right now.
You've done, board of selectmen's complete with all that stuff they gotta do?
No, we just had the host agreement.
Yeah,
signed.
and that's complete, okay.
No, but, you know, just a host agreement.
Yeah.
So they have to come back.
Right, and that's what they need to be able to get to this stage of the
Yeah.
state process. Okay.
So, if we can go through, we don't have to go through all the comments, but I've highlighted the ones that I think are more important to just review and discuss at this point. lot of it's just small minutia on the plans to modify and adding a little detail here or there. So, starting with first comment, 36D1F, about the angles and bearings and distances. We had asked for a waiver on the previous submissions, I know when we discussed it before, on this corner lot, we were gonna get a stamped plan from the surveyor, meets and bounds, and that is in process, so we will have that as part of the package.
So you don't need a waiver.
Yes, we won't need the waiver. So three,
Missing the second
I
page.
think we're missing page 2.
Melanie,
2 and 4.
I think the
Well, yeah.
printing on the back didn't go.
2 and 4? There's 4. There's
Yeah, I think the
3.
back of the pages
Yeah,
didn't come up.
Okay,
It
my
went
responses
Oh,
on, so you
there we
can
go.
have these.
Yeah, I think just 2 gets done. Gets done.
After that,
Yeah.
it's just got your comment on.
Thank you very much.
This order before, so.
Do you have one for our clerk?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
That's me. Keep going.
So, page 2, 360D1L, applicant shall provide first floor plans, building elevation, for the structure, so we have them now. So we didn't have them when we submitted the application packet, we do now, so they'll be included in the revised submission. 360D1R, same page. Some areas show more than a half-foot candle spilling on the properties. I think that comment was from the previous application filing we did for the adjacent lot, because the lighting plan that we have does not show light spillage. Foot candles are all within the property, except for this corner right here where there's a .1 foot candle at the property line this location. So this will be fixed, to make sure there's no light spills over the property line. So 360D1S, the current plan has no proposed signage. So we haven't worked out the exact details, whether we're gonna have building mounted signage,
Building mark.
monument signage, because there were discussions about if there's gonna be a monument sign kind of for the complex of multiple buildings or, right, so. Heard from Rob now, there'll be a building mounted sign, so whatever that will be submitted as part of the building permit application time.
Building
Well,
permit
you-
application?
Does it have to be?
No, usually go after for the sign permit, after the building's completed.
But can't we just put it on this and then,
Well, if they, as long as they're in compliance with zoning, you're all
Yeah,
set.
that's
If
fine.
it's, if you wanted to make it a little bit bigger, you could get it and not have to comply with the zoning if the planning board approves it here. Because we changed the sign bylaws to make it easier, so you didn't have to go to both the ZBA and the planning board. If it kinda makes sense for the size and scope of the
I think-
project, it could be larger, but this doesn't really warrant it. And if it's gonna be in compliance, we just have a condition that there are no signs shown, and any signs have to, are required to meet zoning standards.
Yeah, it's a small building, it's 16 feet high.
Yeah, so it doesn't really need it.
I think there is a state cannabis control commission, they have a sign regulations, right?
yes, they do.
They do.
Content of the sign and size, both?
There's some,
Content
like,
and what
no,
they can.
what you
put
can
in.
say, you can't have pictures of pot leaves and things like that.
Yeah.
Usually they be on the town, but yeah, we can't.
Oh, yeah, no, our sign bylaw, but they have their own other things
Yeah.
going on too.
We're limited what we can have.
Yeah. And if you do it on the site plan, then you don't have to get the sign permit.
That's why the building makes, right now it's an LED logo on the
Yeah.
building, on the, that would be the south side.
Is that on that chimney looking thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's why we did that, because that's what the logo would do.
What we get, I mean, do you have that design done, the size and what it's gonna be?
We can get it, yes.
If we have it, we may as well put it on there.
Is that the size allowed by the cannabis control commission?
I have.
There is some regulation on that, maybe
Yeah,
I would check on it.
They regulate size too?
Yes,
I thought they just had content. Okay.
they have the content, they have the That's what I think. They are very, very picky on the sign.
No flashing neon.
Right.
Yeah, no fish.
Fish.
So 312.4, page 2. RMDs may not be located within 500 feet of the following: school, childcare facility, library, playground, public park, etc. So this location has already been reviewed and approved as part of the community host agreement meetings. So we didn't show a plan that has that kind of radius of what's around it. And all that information was already vetted as part of that process.
Okay.
So we don't have a separate plan. that
There-
shows.
The other thing that came up at that meeting was the discussion that the field is a parkish, you know,
Private.
thing. Right, but then it came up that it's on a public park. So they might ask you that too.
Well, that was, I mean, your legal town, KP Logic, your town council actually,
Oh, vetted that out?
yeah,
For us
yes.
or for you?
Upstairs.
For upstairs, okay.
312.5A1, the applicant shall include a copy of its registrations as an RMD from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. So we've filed through Cannabis Control Commission, who's the governing body, so I'm not sure myself, crystal clear on whether the Department of Public Health is also governing authority we have here.
We didn't invoke them, we only talk about cannabis control.
Yeah, from what
What is this back?
I know the Board of Health,
Board of Health is involved,
Board of Health has
Board of-
requirements for sale of
But not
cigarettes.
Department of Public
and
Health.
any
no,
smoke.
even for this also, they have a certain regulations,
Our Board of Health.
our Board of Health,
Yeah, but not Department of Public Health.
no.
Where did it mention Department of Public Health?
So we're not comment letter, so maybe we got that wrong. Maybe
It's the Cannabis Control Commission, because the one
Maybe
maybe
that's
has
what we
jurisdiction
interpreted the
on
regs.
Department of Public Health.
It's that way.
What
Well-
number was it? Do you have the number, and do you have it right there, Andy?
312.5A1.
Copy of the registration as an RMD from the Department of Public Health. It says it.
It says it
In our
in the zoning bylaw?
So it's registered as an RMD with Department of Public Health. We'll look into it, maybe
Yeah,
an error in the bylaw.
could be an error. Is it, they don't issue this?
When was those?
That's medical more, there's a lot of statements that were in that, in the,
I think it is.
response that were basically for medical dispensaries, you know.
Okay.
It was taken from the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations, so.
Yeah, I think it's
We
all
have to go
cannabis
back.
control, not Mass Department of Public
Yeah,
Health.
but at the same time, we took the language for the bylaws. It's from adopted from the Cannabis Control Commission,
Okay,
so we didn't write a bylaw,
well,
some of those things, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, maybe, we'll check it
So
out.
we'll-
We'll check on
We'll
it.
just have to check on that.
Somebody will check
We
that?
will check on it.
We'll
I'll
check,
check on it.
okay.
And the Board of Health has sort of jurisdiction too on anything, like
The local
kitchens
Board
and
of
things
Health,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
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 our Board of
yeah.
Health.
Well, hopefully we'll get a comment from them on this site plan review.
Oh, we sent it to them?
Yeah,
They're not on the normal thing, is it?
yes, they are.
Bob?
Yes.
Oh,
Bob Barrow, Chairman of the Board of Health for the last
Ever.
twenty-something years, probably.
okay.
They may have comments that, no, I remember, that yellow sticky has the department comments on it.
It says on,
The yellow sticky? Exactly.
This
Stapled them all together.
This one.
Those are the ones we reviewed.
You know, just if I could just make a comment, the genesis of 4 or 5 of these comments near the end of the zoning section really to prove to the planning board that the applicant has provided, is complied with the state requirements, right? So whether there's an error in the way the zoning's written, or it's cannabis, whatever, as long as they provide documentation that's consistent with the state regulations for this type of facility, that's what you guys should be worried about.
Makes sense.
It's a not stepping on toes exercise, I think.
We got it.
So we don't
We'll have
approve them to do something that
We're gonna
somebody
have a
else told them they
condition
couldn't.
One of our conditions is that, and usually it's associated with the state highways, that they still have to get all other appropriate state and federal requirement, federal regulation.
All right,
So,
good condition.
Any state regulation, because there is no federal.
Oh, yeah.
well, there is.
You can't.
We don't wanna get into the
We're all
federal
good.
regulations, thank you.
Let's stick with state.
You cannot operate a business.
So, same page, 312.5A5. The applicant shall provide a description of security measures, including employee security policies approved by DPH for the RMD. The security plan was submitted to the planning board, back in April. And,
Do we have comments to from the police chief?
We do. Want to go over those now?
Well, when it comes to
Yeah.
security, I don't know anything about security, so.
Brian, did we not have that, or was?
No, I've never seen comments from police.
Should we all get do we all get copies?
What's it say? Oh, it's a lot of comments.
We have fire department approval, no comments. Chief of police approval, no comments.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
The only
Board of
comment
Health?
was water.
No comments?
Bob
Conservation.
approves, must be sewered, is his only comment.
Okay.
Okay?
He mentioned to me that they're gonna be talking about disposal, and that's one of the things we were gonna get to, the idea of how you're gonna dispose of stuff, cause there was some news article that had people dumpster diving somewhere in Northborough or
Yeah, but
something.
that's a testing lab, not on the dispensary.
That's
Well,
an R&D lab.
So as long as your response is that there's no
There's no disposal.
merchandise that's gonna be disposed, that is a good way to
Let
go.
let us know if you are disposing anything.
I mean, you know,
There's the evening bonfire in the parking lot.
yeah, just burn
No,
it
Mark
up,
will
it's,
be
you
there
know, no
if
big.
you are disposing anything.
With the odor though, then.
We do have a comment from the Conservation Commission. Applicant has not been before the commission. I have to know where it will be and what he's doing. I need an approved definitive plan from the planning board first, then the applicant needs to come back to the commission. That's from the Conservation Commission.
I think that's a misunderstanding.
Yes.
We're outside of all jurisdiction of conservation.
Well, I think that's what he has to know. He doesn't know where the project is, and he knows you have all this property right there.
And if you could just send the Concom, I don't know if you have some kind of a locus plan and the wetlands showing, just show them where all the work is, and then they'll be able to respond easily.
Can do,
Okay, so that's all the comments we have.
yes.
What about the water department?
So the water department comment, it's in here.
Oh, I know,
I'll
but I
speak to
just
them as
wanted to say
well.
it was in there as well.
They were just saying that the water services to the existing houses that were there
Yeah.
need to be terminated back to the main.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
So that's, they'll be done. We added notes to the plan to say exactly what he commented on.
And they don't need to worry about any flow tests, that's often one of their comments, doing a flow test to make sure. Okay.
There was no comments on that.
Again, you won't be using a lot of water there.
Yeah, it's not a
Oh,
grow
it's two
facility,
bathrooms.
there's two bathrooms.
That's right.
Yeah, so the applicant shall provide a copy of proposed water disposal procedures, it's not applicable, it's not a cultivation facility. So, let's see here. So 312.5B is the applicant shall provide any comments received from building, fire, police, we just discussed that. Water department were the only comments that were applicable, and we addressed that with the note on the plan. And then 312.6A, the applicant shall provide hours of operation for the facility.
10 to 7 is normal.
10 to 7.
10 to 7 p.m.
How many days a week?
7.
And, I forget what our standard condition is on construction. Did you have any problem with the other sites? We have a standard, I think it's 7 to 4 for construction, 7 to 6 for construction site work. It'll be our standard condition.
Whatever the standard conditions are fine with. We haven't had any problems. Page 4, stormwater management comments. Test pits should be performed prior to construction. So we already did test pits back in March. We did, I'll show you where on the plan. They were not included in the drainage report, so I will get those on the plan so you can see where they are with all the test pit data. The soil was exactly what we were expecting. Here for the previous, we did 3 in this basin, 2 in this basin, we did 2 in this basin. So we have test pit data for all of them. We confirmed groundwater elevations, level, below basin bottoms, and they meet the DEP regs. So that'll be all included and forwarded to DHB as part of this resubmittal. Comment number 2, in stormwater, doesn't appear the calculations for the existing subsurface infiltration basins account for the temporary parking lot. So, as I explained before, this existing, not existing, this proposed basin was permitted as part of the 16,800 square foot building is sized for that rooftop. So we made the temporary parking area the exact same footprint. So the catch basins, that's gonna be flowing back toward these catch basins, so this basin is sized to handle that stormwater flow. A portion of this proposed lot, when the building was built, some of the rooftop was proposed to go back to the baseball facility. So it's just a grading exercise to take the same square footage and direct it back toward the baseball facility where there are existing catch basins to collect it. So there's no increase in stormwater basin size required as part of the temporary parking.
And that's in your responses to VHB.
Yes.
So are there things that you're not really able to do in their comments? I mean,
No.
we don't need to go through every one.
No,
If
that's
you
why I just
respond
wanted to,
that.
I just picking out the ones that I think were
Okay.
important to talk about, I'm not reading them all. There's only,
No, I think the important ones are the ones you think you can't do. If you can just
Right.
send them the information, that's good. Get it over to them, because we're not gonna look at the calcs. You don't want to do, Sarah?
No, because I won't get it, so, it's still a learning curve here.
yeah, there's a couple grading comments that are easily addressed, everything else is very easily addressed. The only, thing I couldn't answer here is the traffic. They provided traffic comments, which we gave to, Green International, but I have not received a comment back yet, a response to their comment back yet, so, but everything, I think VHP's comment letter pretty much started out that it's, the analysis says completed, it was reasonable, they had some recommendations for modifications, which will incorporate, unless there's anything you can
So
speak
I'd
about.
like to comment on one thing, relative to traffic though, I do have Pat Dunford from VHB here, I think it'd be worth, from the board's perspective, to just hear maybe the highlights of his comments, understanding that Green will be addressing those separately. But Brian, I do wanna comment, I am a little concerned about temporary parking and how we're gonna facilitate some type of parking field arrangement with striping or whatever, understanding that it's not paved.
Yeah.
So, I kinda echo Vinnie's comment on that, is, I'm thinking it through and we can talk about it, but you're gonna have to do something, and I'm trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. I mean, if it's grinds and it's rolled and it's tight, maybe you could, restripe the thing every month, and it would, the markings would stay, with paint, something to think about, but I don't think leaving it wide open is gonna work really for everybody, so we'll have to come up with something.
Yep, we did show bituminous berm on it, and it's regrind, so
Okay.
we have bituminous berm along the edges. We showed striping, but if it's a matter of we have to stripe or we have to pave, it's pavement, it's what,
At least something between the rows,
And
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe more permanent that wouldn't be striped, that at least would show you how to park.
Right.
Now that you understand our concern, think about
Yeah,
that and see if you
that's
can
fine.
come up with something that works for you guys.
It's not unreasonable at all. And it's a matter of where we were hesitant to pull the trigger on paving a whole parking lot, a 100-space parking lot,
You're not gonna have
if
it.
we don't even need it.
And that's the thing,
That's
you
understandable.
can stripe, and if you only need to stripe, you stripe the whole thing once, but half of it never gets used, so those stripes are fine, and where it gets used, that's where you restripe, so it's not, shouldn't be that big a
So
deal.
it's, I like to look at it's gonna be more of a fluid process in the beginning, but if that's a non-starter for the board,
What
we'll.
about like a Jersey barrier or something, just to show the divider and people just park into the divider? I mean, just something so that it's not a,
Or the little,
Free for all.
little concrete fence or
Temporary
something
curb.
to.
Yeah,
Curb
temporary
stops or
line up.
something.
or those traffic barrels with like some,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. what
something
that-
between them.
Yeah, the curve things.
A lot of these places actually incorporate fields, like the one in West has a field and they just use, caution tape or something.
Yeah, with barrels or something.
Temporary curbing. They're not even using.
Yeah, but they are busing it from one location to another.
But they're not
But
even
this is-
doing that.
They're not doing that
No,
anymore,
No,
yeah.
they don't even use the field. Like I said, the Hudson, it's a little bit just.
How far away you are opening this place?
October is I mean, depending on obviously how approvals go, but with obviously time.
But you are still working under the Cannabis Control Commission, right?
Right, but as soon as we have our special permit, we're between 30 and 45 days for approval. We've got about, I think Patrick said 9 to 10 weeks of construction. Larrabee's found a home in Maine, so they'll be moving out in 45 days.
And you'd start the construction, I mean, and if it doesn't, if, for whatever reason, you don't get the approval, you just use it for another use, I guess?
From the state.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, would you start before you have their approval?
Well, that's the point of the special permit, to begin construction, so that when we do have the CCC, I mean, this is basically the fifth location that my partners have been involved with. So
Yep.
it's not like it's their first time, I don't anticipate any issues.
Okay,
This is, this is one of the better prepared sites, it's a better location, the building is larger than most buildings, the parking is 3 times what the normal parking is in the other facilities, so I don't anticipate any problem with the CCC. Our issue is just trying to get open as soon as possible after.
yeah, okay.
Like I said, Hudson is 3 times less the traffic than what they expected, just because there's 31 of them open right now in the state. So, and the CCC is hitting up between 4 and 6 permits every 30 days.
There's
Okay,
30,
I'm just,
what's the number 31?
There's 31 right now. There's 4 to 6 permits being issued every month.
31 permits.
Permits to open dispensaries,
How many are actually open?
31.
31 are open?
31 permits have been issued, yes, and they're just either waiting on, some of them are waiting on traffic stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're, like Millbury, they have to put in a light and they have to repaint that side road before they can open.
was your traffic comments mostly on the stripes?
So, Pat, if you don't mind, can you just run through the highlights of your comments, just for the board's benefit?
Hi, Pat Dunford with VHB, traffic engineer. I can keep this brief. We had a comment memorandum, May 3rd, we had issued on the traffic study. I won't go through all the details of it. Generally speaking, the study was fine, captured the existing conditions, reasonable projections of future conditions. A few items did jump out at me, just requiring detail, I think, not necessarily anything major. Some of those were touched upon earlier. The uncertainty of the parking, regardless of the exact number of facilities that are now open, there are a few that are open. A lot of them are in more downtown settings where they don't necessarily have on-site parking. I do know of one in Fall River where I know the traffic engineer for the project recently conducted some traffic counts, which are slightly higher than what was in their study based on the standard ITE data. Nothing that would change the overall conclusions, but that was one of the comments that they addressed, revised that to show that condition. The parking would be something I'd be interested in seeing, the actual observed parking demand at the site. There was one in Fall River that we had suggested, and that might be an interesting comparison to see if the 21 spaces is adequate, the 92 on a temporary basis. I was looking, and I think I heard some of it tonight, a little bit of clarification as the 92 on the southerly side is more of a temporary interim condition. And the Q plan, as it was called, was showing traffic coming in off of Shrewsbury and out onto Hartwell. Was that only temporary as well?
That was at the request of the police chief.
Okay.
He wanted to minimize the amount of traffic exiting Shrewsbury Street.
Yeah, and, I mean, the roadways surrounding both sides of the site are low volume enough that I wouldn't anticipate any roadway capacity issues. The traffic study is actually reflecting kind of the more natural condition with everyone coming in and out in Shrewsbury Street, which I think also could work on a permanent basis. I'm certainly not going to oppose the police on that matter. That just needs to be addressed in the traffic study, the consistency of that. And if there is any kind of, in addition to the interim parking, will there be interim police details needed, scheduled only appointments for sales? A lot of the existing facilities have done that. Most of them have stopped it shortly after opening, but that's kind of a traffic calming or traffic demand management measure when these open. It's just having scheduled appointments for a short time period. And I think very quickly, most of them have normalized where they can have full operations, just random customers shortly thereafter. So that might be something that should be addressed. On the parking, you had commented earlier on the spaces possibly needing to be angled near the adjacent property's driveway. I had a little concern with the presence of those spaces in general, where probably like the first two might create some conflicts with traffic entering the site or exiting from the adjacent property at that point. So if the supply is more than adequate, it might be worth looking into just eliminating those 2 or 3 closest spaces altogether, just to kind of clean up the driveway operations.
Can you point those out, or over there?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's what I was referring
oh,
to,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna go to the one that shows the routing and the exit.
Patrick, you mentioned something about IT parking requirements. How do we stand with those? Because we, like I said, we only have 15 required in our zoning. Do you have an idea of what the ITE requirements would be for this
You know,
kind of
off the
use?
top of my head, I don't know the parking for ITE. The ITE studies are based, given that they're a few years old, mostly on Colorado facilities. And I think perhaps Oregon was the other state where it was legal. So they have a fairly limited database, which, in other side of the country. And they also have quite a few out there. I think there's actually Colorado, I think, is over 300 or 500 total operating. So it's a different environment altogether. So I think localized data, Fall River or any other existing facility for the parking demand, I think would probably be more relevant just to get a more local feel for what you'd expect here. And again, they had used, as is a standard practice, the ITE data for the traffic projections. And I know since then they've gathered some traffic counts from the Fall River one. Again, not very different, but just for documentation, those should be put out there. But I think the parking would be the most valuable one. So I think those were really the major items, just seeing that kind of real-world example and a little more detail, or actually some detail in the traffic study about the initial traffic management. And the parking actually wasn't discussed in the study. It was, I think, deferred to the site plan with the zoning compliance. So I think those two areas, the traffic management and the parking, could bear just a little bit more detail, but I don't think it's insurmountable. Any questions? Be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Can I make some comments to the board, just,
Yes.
because this is the first time you guys have been through this, right?
Mhm.
So, I've sat through a couple of the municipalities. Some of the biggest concerns that they had really was the ability to be able to modify parking, circulation, appointments, things like that. I would suggest to the board, now, you guys can condition this however you want, depending on your concerns. A couple things to consider: appointment only for a certain amount of period may be a good idea, so that you can see that if it works, rather than just a free-for-all when the thing first opens. Obviously be reasonable with the applicant, so doesn't have employees standing around waiting for people to come in, but some reasonable amount of appointments per hour, at the board's discretion, you may want to consider that. You can certainly condition it that way. Also, another thing that I've seen other boards do is asking the applicant to come back before the board 30, 60, 90 days, whatever time you feel is reasonable, to discuss how's the circulation, how's the activity, how's the queuing, how's the complaints from the police chief, yes or no. If everything's good, theoretically, you could relax some or maybe all of the requirements that you previously put in place, and you may decide at that point that this extra 92 spaces is just not needed, guys, and go do what you want to do with it. So I would recommend that you at least have them come back 1 or 2 times. It's really to everybody's benefit, because it allows them the ability to come back and say, hey, I know you asked us to have only 4 appointments every 15 minutes, but we can really do like 12, and it doesn't affect anything. And they can prove that to you, and you guys can say, that sounds great, show us, and things move forward.
In your experience, how long have the appointments how long have they had to have appointments?
So.
Weeks, couple weeks,
So,
month?
I'm working with one municipality, and as part of that, they did some research in Salem, Lowell, and Hudson. And I believe the research showed that they had the appointments for about a month or so. And then they determined that they didn't need the appointments anymore.
Even with this many stores open? Really?
One quick comment too on the appointments, it was great at the beginning. I mean, we have literally 3 times the amount of parking as every single facility out there. So
Yeah, I don't.
the appointments were basically to limit the traffic, make sure we're not, we're not in a high.
Leicester was the exception, because that was the first one on the East Coast.
Absolutely.
But Salem was mentioned, they were the second one in the state, or maybe Northampton.
Probably
also.
third, I think, so.
Third.
Yeah.
but they didn't have the parking there. They didn't, or at least they had no
Hudson
parking.
Hudson canceled their police detail in 2 days.
Salem.
And does Hudson
Salem
have
Oh, it's still there.
driving and parking is not a good
It's still
example.
there. I mean, I went out there
Anywhere.
So-
last
What's
weekend.
Salem,
It's
as
there
far as
because-
driving
No,
and
I
parking,
understand.
not a
It's
good
part of
example
that.
of anything.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Oh, that's true, there's not cars there,
No,
but the
there's
police,
nothing, yeah, it's a
Okay.
little concerning, to be honest with you.
So,
My comments aren't meant to hinder the applicant, obviously, just to make sure that everything works fluidly. So maybe you guys discuss it with them, and, you know, if it makes sense for them to come back 2 weeks after they open, whatever. Something to just reassess periodically so that you guys can show really the citizens of the town that you're doing your due diligence to make sure things are operating effectively. And if people say, hey, this is crazy, you can say, well, really, it isn't. We actually have them come back in, and they have data saying that it's working effectively. We get reports from the police chief, and there's no complaints, things like that.
so
Again,
I just wanna know, so I go to the gym at 99 Hartwell all the time, so I come in and out from that direction all the time, so I'm in that intersection a lot. And I was reading the crash analysis section of your, report, which because I'm pulling out of there all the time, the sight lines from that direction are not great going either way, and if we have a lot more traffic there, I don't know, and people come quick through there sometimes, that's really what it is. I mean, the speed limit is not very fast, but that is not what people do, so,
Can I elaborate?
yeah,
on this?
yeah, please,
And again, to be clear, I'm representing the town in
Yeah.
the review.
yeah,
The applicant's traffic study did include a crash analysis of about 5 study area intersections. And a few, and I think that may have been one of them, were showing a higher than average crash rate.
yeah.
And again, the volumes out here are fairly low, but I did suggest that they take a look at things like cutting back bushes or just other kind of low-cost, quick measures that can be done, where a lot of times those can clean up an issue, just like you
Yeah.
suggested. On the speeds as well, it was kind of interesting. Shrewsbury Street is posted at 30, and the observed speeds were coming in at like 44, 45.
Oh, yeah.
Which, that's not unusual to have speeds higher than the speed limit, but that is kind of notable. So, you know, some sort of, you know, that may require more discussion, the traffic engineer. Speed humps, traffic calming measures,
I hate speed humps.
most
but
people do.
I wondered if,
That's why they work.
maybe there should be like, maybe it could be a 4-way stop. Just saying.
They spoke about cleaning the bushes up, and we're actually gonna repaint the stop line with reflective paint, we're gonna redo all the entire intersection, so hopefully that.
Yeah.
Is that on,
maybe we just have to.
is that stuff on the plan?
Yeah.
Sign up that.
I just-
On the new, on the revised
Yeah.
plans? I think that's what, I would rather see it in your proposal, so that we can then approve something or disapprove it, as opposed to us coming up with a condition which always gets a little dicey, trying to figure what that's gonna, what the wording is there and how it's gonna get implemented. Because a lot of times after the site is constructed, we issue a request or a recommendation for a certificate of completion, planning board's out of the loop. So it's then up to the building inspector, the fire chief, and other people. So if it's written into your plan, then we can have it.
So I mean, we can write on the plan about clearing on our frontage, but I don't know what we can do about everyone else's property.
Well, it could be in the right of way of the street.
Yeah, as long as it's in
You
the
do an
right of way.
initial, if you do an initial one for the right of way of the street, and then just, you'll notify the DPW when it's needed in the future, that kind of thing, just, because you guys are gonna know before anyone else, you'll hear the screeching and hopefully not the crash.
Yeah.
The fact that traffic is exiting onto Hartwell Street, and that part of Hartwell Street has no traffic, basically, it's a dead end.
Right, that's a good,
So
Yeah,
the
that
fact-
part
the
should
fact-
be easy.
The fact that they're coming out on a street is, with a stop sign, is probably safer than coming out onto Shrewsbury Street. So I think that's
It's better than coming the way you're,
Absolutely.
because I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking, yeah, that, like, so I'm just talking about the general,
So coming
like,
down Hartwell Street onto, you can see both ways pretty good because you're on the
That's
opposite
what
side
I
of the
figured.
curve, yeah.
cause that seems, cause it's the opposite of what I'm seeing in that spot
Right.
all the time. But just more traffic in general, like, you know, for those people like me who are trying to make a left out of there, just makes that.
Apparently you have to drive faster, I don't know.
Apparently, I need to be quick getting out of there. Actually, you haven't seen me drive Mars.
That's-
I'm in the 45.
and then the other thing, the other thing we probably wanna see is, like a hierarchy of stuff that like Patrick was saying and Wayne, the idea of, do we need appointments? It doesn't sound likely, but if they are needed, can you have a program kind of written up and say, this is what we're gonna do? If the police chief says, okay, you need to do appointments, start those up tomorrow. you're ready to go and have it running. Just have stuff in your pocket so that we don't get caught blindsided on this if a problem happens. It seems like there's a lot of parking, but
Yeah,
having that stuff written up isn't really that difficult. It's been done other places, just kind of use it for this, submit it in the package, and then we might recommend that the building inspector hold a meeting 2 weeks after the grand opening, which would be, usually it's always before our request for a certificate of completion, because you guys always wanna get in there and going. Maybe we hold a meeting on that, see how everything is running, and then implement things that need implementing or change things that aren't needed.
Had you considered appointment only at all, or?
At the beginning, we did, but after seeing how the other dispensaries are doing, it's kind of fallen off our radar.
Okay.
So if I can make a comment on that, actually for the applicant's benefit, from my experience, I would highly recommend you take the board's recommendation and propose something.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. We have-
You propose something that's reasonable to you guys, all right, but if you don't, I have seen other boards that, come up with their own rules, and the rules that you're not gonna like, because I saw this in one community, they limited, 3 appointments per 15 minutes. So think about that. That's gonna limit your business significantly, right?
Wow.
So, and they didn't have an option, they did give them the ability to come back in 30 days and modify that, but for the first month, the customer's gonna suffer, I mean, the business is gonna suffer. So propose something that's reasonable so the board doesn't have to propose it for you, is my message.
The only other thing I would be worried about is with such a big parking lot, and I don't know how long it takes to service one customer, but I don't think we want like some big tailgating party going on out there. Well, you know, or maybe you do. Yeah, okay, all right, then it's okay. But I mean, if there's a huge, 90 people out in the parking lot waiting,
It's part of the
an hour.
restriction.
Right.
They
Okay.
cannot-
That's small.
you can't-
well, I know they can't, but if you're gonna give them a place, I
No.
mean, okay, then tell them they cannot, and then it's over.
So I think, I'm gonna try to be quiet tonight, because obviously I just walked in, but I think one thing that should give the board a peace of mind is Mr. Fuller, that at the time that this opens, will be directly behind there operating his
Right.
business. So that's probably the only instance in the state where you have somebody that owns a dispensary and has their operating business right there. So who's better to keep an eye on things and make sure,
Most of these owners don't even live in Massachusetts.
or they're a big giant
That's
national
fair.
company.
Right.
Because you guys don't want a backlash from residents or whatever, if there's some big to-do happening on the first weekend. It's not gonna look good for anybody if there's a problem.
I'll be on the property 14 hours a day, personally.
Any other comments from the board? Anything else from VHB? Anybody else?
So, continue?
Yes, I think that's what it was.
I have one question, not a comment,
Yes.
Paul, if I may. You guys mentioned that people were concerned about things. Is there a reason there's nobody here tonight?
That was the question I'm going to
I
ask.
expected this, everyone I've been to, there's been like standing room only,
I'm
and there's
surprised.
nobody here.
I'm really surprised also.
Did you send in the?
I don't, are you sure you have the tickets?
Yeah.
And how far did it go? Did it get to any of the Angel Brook people?
I honestly don't know what the, I didn't do the
Oh,
math.
okay. So, to be
No, I'm
honest with you,
surprised,
we went to
I'm
Angel Brook.
surprised too, Wayne.
In the entire Angel Brook
Yeah.
community, there's 9 people that have minor issues with it, 9.
All 9 of them were here last
They
week.
were,
Last
Oh,
two.
yeah.
No, they're worried about the grow, not the retail.
No, I know.
but they were probably.
That's the message we had as well. So we actually offered to bring them to our grow facility in Thames Grow, just for a tour, so they can see it,
Yeah.
and boss catered lunch. I mean, we've been very active in the community, making sure that.
Okay.
I think they would be here if it was a cultivation.
And if- Or they were concerned more?
Cultivation on Hartwell Street, on the other side.
That's,
Yes, that's
yes.
their issue.
Right.
yes, I think that's, because we discussed the fact that this one's a retail establishment, and you're not gonna have
No smell.
any odors.
The
really.
biggest concern we heard was traffic, and hopefully we're gonna nip that in the bud.
The traffic report was very favorable.
Yes.
Made a lot of
Yes,
sense.
it was surprising, actually.
Yeah.
I think if I could surmise the 2-hour community outreach meeting that we had, I think half the comments were, we don't want this in West Boylston, and some of the selectmen were there to say, well, that kind of ship already sailed. We had the opportunity
it's up again. They have it.
Oh, that was another comment, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He wasn't here for
and
that
then,
part.
You know,
Yeah,
the
right.
next group was traffic really related. And I think that was really the two biggest issues we
Yeah.
heard out of all that
Yeah.
discussion at the Manor that evening was traffic and we don't want it here.
I mean, when you think of a lot of different locations, this is a good location for something like this,
Yeah.
because it's
That's what we
It's
thought.
off
somewhat,
of Route 12.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
it's somewhat isolated, it's not in the central business district, it's a good location for this.
Well,
Just
there's
long
the-
as it
and-
works appropriately. it
And there's
should be
3
fine.
directions you can come in
Yes.
There
to
are.
the facility
That El
from.
Forno location is gonna be a nightmare.
What's that?
That El Forno location is gonna be a nightmare. Talk about a place where that doesn't belong, that's
The sightlines there are horrible.
Yeah.
horrible.
You know?
Horrible.
Yeah. Well, I live a block from there, so.
Okay, so, I'm gonna make a motion to continue this public hearing for the site at 111 Shrewsbury Street to, when?
Well,
Do we
Oh.
want, we do twice second?
Is that what you're gonna call this 111 and 113 evaporates?
Yeah, we did.
And I can't remember what time I forgot to put it on my calendar, what time we have it, it's in my room.
Well, I
don't have it.
can't make the 22nd meeting.
Probably need that.
Uh,
the
well,
next one would be
that's 2 weeks, so
Right. That's tight.
How much time do you need?
That's
Tight
tight.
anyway.
When is it,
We could do it Friday.
I mean, for the comments and VHB and,
We should be able
Can
to
we,
get these comments
Ma'am?
beginning of next week.
can I suggest something? Can we put it off for the next month?
Till June
So
12th.
it does goes to the town meeting. We do have 2 warrant article. That warrant article might go back to the AG's office.
Well, yeah, that's gonna run its course separate than this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think this
we
one, we
should
wanna
just
just
keep
move it
going.
however it goes.
Right.
And I'm just saying that I can't make the 22nd, I got an engagement there.
Yeah, maybe the first,
So do you
the
want
second.
June 12th?
June 12th? And that way, if we can have everything ready, I might even have an approval drafted. And then we get everything.
you're gonna send out those templates?
Drafting approval.
You're sending those templates out? Is that what we're gonna?
Yeah, it'll be in your email tomorrow morning
Is
for
that-
you to draft it.
I'll hand deliver it to his house for that.
This time, give it to Mark, let him draft it.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be
Would
less
you
than a
happy
page,
with
I guarantee.
With, a month from now?
The sooner the better, literally, so as soon as we can go back to the CCC with special permit, that's what our goal
That's
is.
what you're trying to
My,
I mean-
our problem is if the CCC calls us and says, hey, you're approved in 30 days, and we don't have our special permit, we go back to the back of the line and it's another 4 months.
Do you have
What is your-
So-
notice?
What the heck?
What's the board's requirement, this is special permit and site plan, right? Oh,
Yeah, we need to have 4.
Do they have to be together?
Up to 5, okay.
What's notice?
My fear is we didn't do a special permit for
You notice?
zoning, site plan review, special permit, and stormwater management permit. So, okay, maybe that's covering it. Because it refers to section 3.6 instead of 3.6 and 3.13.
Do they have to stick together?
But it states what it is for, though.
It is, I mean,
It
yes,
says what it's for.
it does.
No, that's okay, I think, but like, if they need a special permit before the site plan's done, can you do that?
No, because it's, the way you do a special permit is to have a site plan review. That's,
And you-
it's
okay.
it's the process it's referred to.
Well,
Okay.
do we know the shrine's happening on the 22nd? We don't.
We do, we don't know what time.
Oh, we don't know. I could go back and find out if you want me to go back.
We haven't heard anything from them, just FYI.
They're
This
kind of
is
waiting for
my
that.
concern, that nothing's
Then we're-
happening.
And then we're gonna have wasted the,
And if that doesn't happen on the 22nd.
But he won't be there.
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, that's
And you
4.
will be there,
The
so we
rest-
have four votes,
so
I
we
mean,
have to all be here, the rest of us.
I think it's better
Because we
to
need-
have a 5-member board.
well,
It's
it
a
is,
majority, right? Supermajority.
You need a supermajority for a special permit.
It'll be benefit for them to have the 5-member board,
supermajority is
special permit,
four,
yeah.
so of the 4 people here.
Or 3.5, I think is what it is,
But
but
we can't really,
No,
Yes.
I can,
we can go there.
yeah. So that's the other issue on the 22nd, there'll be 4 members here.
So,
it'll,
the 12th,
it'll be
and
better for
hopefully
you
we'll-
to have 5-member.
if all the paperwork's done by the
Why, you're not
22nd,
voting for
In
it?
case somebody
I can
dissents,
start
right?
drafting
That's
an
what
approval.
we do.
He's not gonna vote for it.
Pass.
So
No,
we'll,
he
yeah,
won't be here.
So you
He
could
can vote,
close the hearing on the
What about you?
12th.
I will vote.
and then have the approval review.
What were you saying about the 30 days as?
So we had a community host agreement, I believe it was January 27th, and usually the CCC is expecting 60 to 90 days by the time you get your special permit, so we're into May already, so they're assuming that we're a little bit, I believe we're a little bit further ahead than what we are. So my fear is if the CCC comes up and says, okay, here's your permit, show us your special permit from the town,
Yep.
and we don't have it, we're gonna end up going to the back
So
of the
when
file.
is that deadline, do you
It can be
think?
anywhere within the next 30 to 60 days,
Anytime.
anytime, we could get a call any day.
They can just call you and say,
They
hey,
email us, yes.
Yeah, but you can always say that, we have a
If we don't have a
planning board.
special permit, they're gonna.
No, you have a planning board hearing, continued planning board, public hearing on that day. You can say that.
Yeah, I can say that, but I believe they're gonna go to the next guy in line, and we'll end up going to the back of the line. That's my fear. I mean, it's another 90-day wait, that's all.
so you're counting 90 days from some date in January?
From the day we got our special permit was usually how long it takes to get your, I'm sorry, the signed community host agreement we got in January, usually it takes 90 days to get your special permit from that time, and we're in May right now, so.
And what's the
So
date?
you're past
What's
your-
the date are we
We're past-
measuring,
we're
what's the
past
date
it.
we're measuring from? January what?
27th, I believe, is.
January
we got
27th?
our Signed community, Raj
So
probably.
April's
I
not
think
April,
I don't know.
that's the end of
I
April.
don't wrong.
So we're already past it.
It's already passed, that's what I'm saying, we're just a little bit nervous on timing, that's all.
So it's been passed,
Right.
so we do need a 5-member board. Let's put it for that,
Well,
12th.
The 12th?
So,
Fine.
You
So,
wanna-
move to June 12th,
I don't have another one.
to continue the public hearing on June 12th. That was the
June 12th at
finish of my, oh yeah, so
7:05.
And we will prepare
7:00
things in advance so that if everything is
in
okay,
order,
7 o'clock, 7:15, 7:05?
7,
after 7, whatever, because if we have one, we
Oh.
would put it at 7, and if we just say 7:05, it can be any time after that, so,
We haven't scheduled another one yet.
so make it,
Probably have one, so if we could probably do this before that one.
right, so
Cool.
7:05,
7:05.
after the public. I don't know, how do we decide, the
What
public,
with the citizens'
citizens
comments?
things?
We said the public hearings would go
So
first,
7 o'clock?
Yeah.
if there was one.
7
So
o'clock.
7 o'clock it is.
7 o'clock,
So to recap,
to recap.
I moved to continue the public hearing for the site at 111 Shrewsbury Street to June the 12th at 7 PM.
Second?
right here,
Second.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
That's my line. I like that.
I just jumped in there, that's all.
You brought
All right.
these comments then from the other departments?
Um,
Or keep them with
Keep
us?
them all with the file, yeah, because I've got my
Okay.
own copies.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, just a comment, I will make a note to email the applicants for Shrine Head on Monday, and just caution them that they get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make sure you guys a copy, so that maybe you can get some advance notice whether you even need to show up on the 22nd, right? If there's nobody, if they're not gonna be here.
That makes sense. Good,
Thanks, Pat.
I think so.
Review, okay, well then I'll wait for that. Yeah.
And I think that might
It's better to have a camera.
Who will
be.
Patrick?
Thank you, Wayne.
There's nothing.
Thank you.
Do you see what Patrick's here for?
Do you need
So,
anything, oh, sorry.
more understanding.
Just the zoning,
Shape,
in the zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
You want-
no idea.
Your comments
But
were
that
on
was
312.
That is my beer.
I mean, they all kind of apply.
Beard?
Yeah, so it's pretty.
Yes.
You can't have beard.
Let's take it next
Okay,
time.
but-
We've talked about this in the past, you can't have beard.
We're gonna be looking
You
at
can,
it.
And I think everything's covered.
Yeah.
Patrick.
I'll have Brian check, and if there's something that we didn't talk about,
Okay.
we'll call him and have him adjust it. Thank you.
I didn't
realize
do
that.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
You have the,
The other half, yes. There was 2 plans I wanted to take a picture of,
Get it.
which is,
oh, right here.
Yeah, that was good. I figured you did, let him at least go over everything. He probably doesn't have to come again.
No,
But
that's
provided
good.
we address everything.
Not for that one, anyway.
do you want to talk to Patrick while I He's here? Our friend Patrick?
Our friend?
I thought there was, I was totally
There's no neighbors.
expecting.
The other Patrick.
Oh, there is no neighbor?
There's more
Well,
than-
he's the chair, so he decides.
Yeah.
There's nothing,
Oh,
Paul McCarty.
How many friends, Patrick, do we have?
McCarty.
It wasn't that many.
Just
Oh,
Patrick.
yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, how are you?
Good, thanks, how are you?
Good.
This is the 215 Shrewsbury.
It is.
Oh, okay.
If you're ready for me.
Yeah, let's go.
So I filed with the town clerk today an application for site plan review and special permit for 215 Shrewsbury Street, which coincidentally is a cannabis facility, which would entail construction of some greenhouses, growing on the premises, no retail sales. So they would be processing products inside the existing building on premises, and then shipping out to their other locations in Massachusetts. So the business owner can explain more about the process. So what we're proposing is to put a greenhouse on the ground behind the existing facility and a greenhouse on the roof for a total of about 25,000 square feet of
He never
greenhouse.
mentioned any roof greenhouse.
He's working with,
First time.
he's working with his architect and greenhouse company now to come
How
up
much
with the
is the
final
total,
details.
total greenhouse?
About 25,000 square feet.
Oh, that will go very well.
He was hoping to get 28,000, that's what he had originally been proposing, but we can't quite fit all of that.
So the greenhouse is 28 and the building is?
No, all of it. It's 20.
The entire thing
That's
is-
just the greenhouse, right, and then the existing building is,
That's another grow.
about 22,000 square feet.
So what's the total growing on the site?
Only the greenhouses, so that's,
Oh, the
Yeah.
gr-
yeah, the
oh,
greenhouses between what's on the ground and mounted on the roof would be 25,000 square feet of cultivation.
1,000 square feet.
And then they have a couple of kitchens inside and processing areas, an employee break room, and an enormous storage area, so. I've got 12 copies of the application here, a list of abutters, 2 copies of the stormwater calculations and report. Stormwater is pretty limited because we're just looking at the, 10,500 square foot greenhouse at the rear and just managing that impervious area. We're able to do that through an infiltration trench, so we really can limit the footprint of the disturbance there. So the Conservation Commission should be happy with that. We did, I have soil tests scheduled for this week, so we'll be supplementing with that. Let's see,
In your application, you're applying for what special permits?
special permit for marijuana facility.
Under whatever it is, 313.
I didn't specify the section.
Can you use the most
You wanna
current
check the
version?
That's the one whole set right there.
Yeah,
that's
this is
on
the
the
section.
front, So the application should be right
Did-
in there, probably under the.
Were you here for the part of, can we tell them about that thing, that rule on the books?
Oh.
The 10-person petition that's on the books right now?
All right. Well,
Yes.
right now.
Town clerk mentioned that to me this
Okay.
morning, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the old application. There's on the town's website, if you could fill that out. I mean, we can still accept it, I guess.
Okay.
It's the old Form S.
So there's a new form on the
There's a new
website?
one that has like right in the top, it says what are you applying for, and a little
Okay.
bit more useful information, not the ancient.
Okay, I did get that from the website, so I'll take a look for a more recent one.
How recently do you think?
Oh, last week when I met with my client and signed everything.
Form S is on there, so.
And that new format is this?
Well,
This
we
one,
got-
So that's what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because basically there's a site plan review under that.
I see, so
and
you
then there's a
specify the
Special permit
section.
says where it's from,
Okay.
and the stormwater, I think you're gonna need stormwater management under this, so we try to get all of them.
I'll check
So
that
that when I
out.
pick
So
up
you
the
found-
approval, it says
I
all
see,
the
I
things
see.
on
Mhm.
So you did find that online
it.
Hmm?
Yeah,
Maybe in a
It's
different
so hard to
location.
defeat old forms, it really
It
is.
is, isn't it?
It's,
Because people,
but it
Well,
happens.
it could be
People
referenced
find the
from
old
some other
forms.
location.
you could have an old URL.
Oh, I see
Web-
what you're saying.
That's on the planning board's
Websites.
website, there's a sidebar with the
Okay,
forms.
then it
Google,
hasn't,
Google
Okay,
caches
check
stuff.
that one.
for a
I
period
can't
of
do one
time,
here.
where like, even though you've
Right.
taken it away, it can still be
Well,
available.
we'll
It should be there,
we'll
but-
give you the form you need, no
We
problem.
need to,
I mean, no one else has one anyway.
It's just, anyway, it's,
yeah. Yeah, old stuff lives on.
it does,
So-
old stuff lives
Because
on.
even if you take it off the website, people have a URL and they go directly there and.
Yeah, if
know
you
what I
don't,
mean?
right, if
save-
you don't actually
save-
take
You
it
save a
down.
bookmark for it, and if it's still there,
Yeah,
it
you
might be
have to
hidden, it
actually-
might be hidden, but it's still there.
But you can, yeah,
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 I
you have
say
to
if
actually
it was
remove
in one
stuff.
of the regulations and if it was attached to that, then it would come up like that.
So that
Okay.
sounds good.
So, the,
You had to do all of Angel Brook?
yeah, the proponent has already held a, community
Oh,
meeting,
that's- yeah.
which had a lot of the,
that's-
residents from Angel Brook
Has that
present.
gone out?
Excuse me?
No, I'll mail that out
Yeah.
once I get your meeting notice,
Okay.
once we decide on the date and time.
Candidate.
We had, just to mention quickly, we had, the folks who, put the citizens petition on the town warrant, here last time, and there's lots of concerns about this, so we tried to assuage them, but
Mhm.
there's concerns about odor and traffic, and, well, not as much traffic with this, but odor is most of it, so.
It would really be a small employee base here with the
Yes,
facility,
so-
so.
Right, but just be aware that that's,
Okay.
those folks are upset, and they have the two warrants on the,
There'll probably be more people here than there were tonight.
yes, well, it was standing room
Sure.
So
only.
the bigger concern is, during the host agreement, his version of how much, I don't think so, he said, the greenhouse is a possibility, if I remember correctly. So he will be growing.
The outside greenhouse.
Outside greenhouse.
Hmm.
So.
But he
will
still
be-
doesn't have the final figures
I'm-
back
I'm
on what
just
it's going
saying-
to cost
I'm
him,
just
so.
saying, the host agreement, people, all the Angel Brook, they were there, they listened to his version of what he wants to do. That was, he will be growing everything inside the building. Nothing is outside the greenhouse, nothing is outside. It seems to be greenhouse means it's outside, right?
The greenhouse is fully enclosed and it has a security fence around it, so.
It's inside the
Air
building,
control?
No, it's,
outside.
oh, it's an addition in the rear of the
In
building.
addition to the
right.
building,
Yes,
yes. So that,
but it's fully enclosed, I
yeah,
think
that,
that's what he is.
if I remember correctly, I may be wrong, I didn't remember the thing. So I think, the greenhouse was a possibility, that's what he mentioned.
I see.
Whereas inside the building was the one he proposed during the meeting. So now, I think that the space was also a little lesser than this. So the major issue major concern is the odor coming out from the facility, especially when they are growing. So they want to know what kind of filter you will be putting it in.
Okay.
So how are you going to, what kind of measures you will be taking it? And what is the, how do you test the filters are,
Yeah, this-
all those things they ask.
I
So
think
the
that-
bigger concern is the smell.
The public, these folks were very concerned about how do you control that. And there's a little bit of distrust, I think, between them and any business person that comes in. They feel the business person will perhaps not be totally transparent about things.
Mhm.
So this is just to warn you that this is the concerns of some of the folks who came in last time.
Okay,
This
so
room will be packed.
we'll be prepared
If you're-
with
the more
appropriate
prepared you
people.
are with assuring people that there'll be no odors and here's what we're doing, the better off everyone will be.
And, yeah, continued enforcement of said measures, or maintenance of said
Right,
measures.
and how, right,
Right,
right, once it's up and operational, what happens if there are problems, things like that. So what do we have for
for dates.
a date?
Well, we could do, earliest I would think would be June 12th.
It could be June 12th?
This weekend, if I get, that would give them more than 30 days,
We're giving 30 days. Okay.
so, I mean, it's the 8th now.
So that's plenty of time for advertising.
Is or is not?
We
It
have
is,
to go
yes.
on the,
So we have to advertise twice for a special
Oh,
permit.
it's the,
29th,
yeah,
so there's the
right,
29th.
yeah, because that's
Okay.
1, 2, 3, that's actually 5 weeks away, June 12th.
Yeah. And like I said, it'd be the 5th,
So,
the 29th. So you want to do June 12th?
7:30?
Yes, we'll give them time, we're gonna do the others first.
Will half an hour be enough for
Probably not.
No.
11?
No. let's be honest here.
Well, but if they have everything all right, I mean, all addressed, and then we're just reviewing the or the proposed.
So you wanna say 7:30 when it really will be 8, or you wanna say 8?
7:45, you wanna go
The
there?
only,
Let's say 7:45, that'll be
the
at
only
least
comment,
slightly more
you're
accurate.
talking about the previous hearing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Think about what, if anything, you want for conditions. I sat through,
Well, that's what I was gonna draft before that
Yeah.
meeting.
I sat through one project's 3 different planning board hearings while they just talked about conditions. I'm not saying you guys are gonna do that, but if all of a sudden somebody could mention something and it could trigger someone to say, oh, maybe we should do this, and I'm just giving you the heads up.
Right.
Half an hour, maybe
It's
not
fair,
good enough.
it's totally fair.
If I got
So-
a comment, it would be nice.
You said 7:30, I said, you said 7,
Well, we
you
need to
said
hear it.
7:30, I
You
said
mean
8.
when
Can
we're
we
not
compromise
sitting
on 8?
here together?
Either one, it's,
7:45
You're
or?
8.
This is for you.
8 o'clock.
I want 8.
Do I hear 8?
that's what
7:45?
it sounds like, yeah.
Going once, going twice.
I think,
Sold to the man with the blue shirt.
Okay.
Just put it down there.
hey, you know, you can always come in a little early and maybe we'll,
We can't start.
Nothing
you're right,
ever
no,
lasts
we can't.
shorter than you
not to worry.
expect.
It's so unlikely
Nothing
that we.
lasts
Well, then, there'll be some time for people to move in and out between hearings.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
That's it.
it'll be
There's
moving in.
Not gonna be any
Right,
extra
right.
time, I guarantee you.
Okay.
Going out
So,
these-
and we have the application, we have the fees,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We got a hearing notice, I'll
and
notify
I saw you
somebody.
waivered, it's automatic to get the stuff back, if it's not used.
Okay.
So that's in there.
Yeah, I did see that language is in, I was asking that the board limit the review to where the improvements are made, rather than, look at
Yeah, what's
the
the?
existing
place
stormwater
on
or
that?
the lighting outside of where we're actually making improvements. So we will be upgrading the site lighting, so I had originally listed that as a waiver, but I deleted it, because we do have to put in security lighting as part of the CCC requirements. So we do have a lighting plan that's being developed now, so I'll be submitting that prior to the hearing.
And the drainage would be more, I don't know.
Yeah, so what I'm, it's really,
I don't know what the cycle
it's really a conservation issue, so we're taking, some woods and grass behind the building, turning it into a greenhouse, so we've gotta mitigate that additional impervious area. So,
Yeah, when you say greenhouse, the average person thinks of a glass building.
mhm,
Is that the type of greenhouse that's being built?
yes.
Okay. As opposed to a greenhouse that's inside a building.
Is there
This is
how
a
do you
freestanding
control-
greenhouse. So there is quite a complex ventilation system that was explained to me by the greenhouse provider, and they have,
You can't really do the hearing stuff.
I understand,
And-
Yeah.
but we'll be prepared to address that at the hearing.
I mean, it has odor control as
Yes.
part of the.
Yes, it does. This company has done a number of cannabis
One other thing was the
facilities.
waste disposal.
So what, the hearing's the 12th, is that what you guys said?
Yep, 12, 8 o'clock.
12 to 8.
Do you have,
a copy for me, Patrick?
that's what I was just gonna say, do you have a packet?
If not, yeah, I mean, you can email it to us,
Electronically,
whatever.
is electronic better, or?
Paper would be great and electronic if you could.
You have a copy?
Well, I have 12 copies here, if you allow me to give him one, because
One of
you
those
have the
is-
one I gave to the town clerk as well, so that's 13, so,
Oh.
Well, one of those
One
is
12.
his anyways.
okay. Here you go, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we have that, and June 12th.
Okay.
Get a
June
hearing
12th
notice.
is gonna be a good.
So are there any other hot button issues? I understand even from what the
You will see a lot of-
client heard from the neighbors those were the two main concerns.
You will see the entire room.
How was your application? Did you give him a host agreement?
Yes.
And your state work is,
I believe they filed it, right?
okay, all right.
So they were concerned that the town would hold up the special permit pending the CCC permit,
Oh.
but I told him it can't work that way, because he's gotta have an address to put on his license with the state.
And then, I guess, I don't know what'll change. There's 2 warrant articles, one to ban cannabis altogether, one to ban it in the area that you're in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's after town meeting, so we'll find out what
Yeah,
happens.
we can't change what we do.
And I think we're gonna probably
No, we
hold,
won't.
but we'll hold the public hearing anyway, cause
Yeah.
let's say it passes,
And the AG
either one of them
rejects
passes,
it.
then it goes to the AG's office.
Oh, so
We gotta play as if the AG is gonna say
Is-
no or yes.
So,
is Angel Brook in your butters list?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Everyone.
So, could I ask when the town meeting's being held?
20th.
20th.
May 20th?
That's
May 20th at
Six?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock
7 o'clock.
at the high
6
school.
o'clock is a, for the bylaws meeting for you.
Oh, yeah,
That's, no, yeah, that's.
So it's proposed as a zoning change?
So,
General, the first article is a general bylaw change to ban all marijuana establishments in West Boylston. The same thing that's been
Yes.
voted on and turned down twice. And the second one is a zoning bylaw, and those are both citizens petitions.
And that's on the warrant, is on the website too, the front
Yeah.
page of our town website.
Can I ask a quick question of Patrick? Patrick,
Yes,
I was writing when you were explaining to the board, this is just growing, there's no sales, correct?
correct.
So there's no traffic?
No retail sales, so I'm asking for a waiver of the traffic
Perfect.
study.
Yep, thank you.
It would be a pretty small employee base.
Okay, so we're all set.
and there'll be 7 18-wheelers rolling in and out every day.
We're gonna get that, as a traffic will
Yeah.
here.
So there
I
are,
would be surprised if there were 7 18.
the building has 2 enclosed loading docks currently, so they'll be doing. all
Closed,
that.
so you can back the truck all the way inside?
Thanks, everybody.
Near the Girl Scout.
We can't say that.
Thank you. See you on, June 12th.
Good luck with all,
Thank you.
may you get all the diplomas correct.
That's the aim.
If you could just print my daughters now, that would save me a lot of money.
That's good one, best, okay, best comment,
started yet.
best comment.
I know she hasn't enrolled.
Oh, man.
Can I just make, well, you guys probably wanna move on to something else, but I wanted to just give you a quick update and 2 comments. Having Larry, sporadically drop out, look at Briarwood, Westland Circle, he's gonna look at Newa, even though I don't really know what there's to look at, I don't think the applicant did what he's supposed to yet.
What's that?
Newa Circle, I'm sorry, Paul.
Oh, yes,
That's
I,
the monuments in the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
think
still
he's done
there.
anything, so.
I did get a letter from, an email from, did I pass that along to the planning board?
You did,
Okay. Yeah, I did.
one of the
I got it.
neighbors, and I think we sent it off to you.
It was like a,
Yeah.
well, it was like a week or
Week and a half ago, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And, I'll have him, stop out and look at Shrewsbury Street, just a comment that I've been noticing, and everyone's kind of so busy, and I mean, busy like in our industry, right? That, things like this are either getting overlooked or something, but a couple of 2 suggestions. I think you guys have done great by adding the construction observation things right to your approval letter, okay, that's great. Something for you guys to consider, because this has been like, probably the only one, believe it or not, that's complied with this has been Mr. Ali on Westland Circle. I know, that's kind of shocking, but
Complied
it's
with
true.
what?
Pre-construction conference, or really any coordination or communication with us, nobody calls us, okay? So Shrewsbury Street, I mean, these guys are great, and I love them, you know, Patrick did, I didn't know they were building anything. I drove by there today, there's a pile of infiltrator units getting ready to be put in the ground. How was I supposed to?
On which
Oh,
one?
oh,
215?
The building behind the one we were talking about tonight.
I'm sorry, not this fellow.
McCarty's.
I'm sorry, Patrick and Brian,
Oh, yeah, 111 Shrewsbury,
Fuller.
yeah, okay.
Well, actually, the one in back.
Behind 111.
Where,
The racetrack,
They're already
racetrack
building
place.
The race car place, yeah.
just something to consider, this may be a little extreme, but just something to consider. Maybe in your approval, you actually stipulate that you require them to make a deposit for construction administration prior to them picking up the approval. And/or, this may be too extreme, but I'm just throwing it out there, and/or that they set a pre-construction meeting date, even if it's tentative. It could be 6 months from now, it could be a year from now. Set a pre-construction date prior to them being able to pick up the actual signed approval from the town clerk. Something to think about, because I don't know how to control this, because we're not here every day, and if they don't tell me that they're working, I don't know. And then I was at Briarwood, and I see a paver was there, they just paved a big section of the lot.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I know there's ways around deals, but do we really wanna make them go through and core everything? We don't wanna make them do that, you know what I mean? It's just, they're not, fortunately, Larry's been stopping out periodically, and he's been keeping tabs on things, but if he wasn't living here,
Right.
I wouldn't have someone doing that.
Right.
And unless they called me, I wouldn't know they were doing anything.
Actually, I don't know how, this problem is like exactly not what you want to hear, when I think the last thing we heard from you was that, McCarty or whoever, the construction, was annoyed that the guy was there all day. You know, I mean,
Steve.
well, why was he here all day? You know, well, cause we didn't know what the hell you're up to, so we went, you know.
Can't win one way or the other, but I'm just trying
Steve's
to
done.
give you
Yeah.
guys some control over it, because we're not here every day, so I
Right.
can't watch it.
And then when you are here, they complain about you being
Yeah,
here.
you're not gonna win, you have to do what you have to do.
Right.
You can let them complain, but you're still gonna do what's great.
I do like what you were mentioning about having them come back, you know, requiring to come back in 2 weeks for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it might be nice for them to come back, I don't know, have them, make them come to the meeting, you know, and tell us about their construction schedule.
Oh, to come to the meeting to pick up the approval?
Well, but the approval will be way before their construction schedule. I mean, come here, like, you have to come to the meeting and tell us about the construction schedule so that we can
That's an option.
get everybody in the
You can't
loop.
start construction until you come to the board for an informational discussion on what your plan is, what your schedule is.
And your schedule.
What your plan is. And if they start construction, you could say, guess what? Cease and desist, or we're.
Right, come to the next meeting and
Right,
straighten
we're
this
making
out.
a permit, yeah.
I mean, just so that
I'm just giving you
it'll,
some options to think about.
So you think them going to a meeting would be better than
well, it puts it on
sending
them.
us something?
Puts it on them instead of him saying, I didn't hear about anything going on. Well, did you guys come to the meeting and tell us that you were doing anything? No. Well, okay, now you gotta core your pavement, or you gotta, you know, dig up this hole that you
Maybe
filled
that's an
in.
option. Maybe the last sentence in your approval says the applicant must appear before a regularly scheduled planning board meeting prior to the start of construction to give the planning board a tentative schedule and set tentative pre-construction meeting
That's-
date and make sure.
That's actually a very good idea.
Thank you, Mike, that was a great
That's a
idea.
good idea.
I mean, just so that it's on them to do it, and at least it kicks it off, you know?
I don't know how else to control it, because you guys asked them nicely, I asked them nicely.
It's in the approval letter.
Yeah, but they don't care.
I know,
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just being honest.
I
they don't
think,
care.
I think especially with the marijuana establishments, the better we can understand what's going on, the better we are.
Well, and those are in the spotlight too, because everybody's paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
How about the U-Haul trucks?
Gone.
Gone.
They're gone? Excellent.
That works.
I was tempted to say that, but I said, okay, no.
Well, yeah,
It's gone.
yeah,
They were gone on the 30th.
right. And they were supposed to be gone by like May
First.
2nd or 1st, yeah.
Yeah,
They were
the
gone
day
on the
before,
30th.
but
Okay.
they do have a couple of storage, construction,
Containers.
construction things there.
Anyhow, that's it, thank you.
Okay,
Great.
thank you
That's a
very
good
much,
idea.
Wayne,
Thank
Thanks, guys.
and happy birthday.
Thank you, appreciate that.
When's your birthday?
Well, I
So
didn't
long
remember
back.
the
A week
date.
and a half ago.
Just turned 39. Then we were good.
For the 15th time?
So at one place, it says, you have a two different birth age. One place it says, another
That's
place
not-
it says,
that's not
Stalking
five,
him?
no,
27, that's it.
5-year
27.
difference.
That's it, 27.
I was wondering, why?
You
it's
say
a
April
5
27th?
Okay,
April 27th is your birthday?
okay. Other boards, reports from other boards. Sarah, thank you. Thank you. I have nothing. Raj?
Yeah, we have a town meeting, May 20th.
Yeah, we do.
May 23rd, we have a candidate nights. And, town,
Oh, May 23rd?
May 23rd candidate nights.
It's,
Are you on the hot seat? Can I ask all sorts of questions?
Yeah.
May 23rd is Thursday, okay.
And our tax collector will be retiring. And we do
What is
have
going
a
on?
May 31st.
May 31st, 10 to 2 o'clock, we will have a coffee for that.
We can't keep up with the vacancies, can
And we have a town election coming up.
we? We do, what's going
All right, that's right.
You know anybody that's running?
No, I don't know.
I saw some signs. I knocked them all over.
I just collected them in my trunk.
Are you running?
I picked up with you.
Yeah,
I shouldn't joke
And you're
about it,
unopposed?
because, you know what, because people actually do that.
I know. And they put them in this room over here, I've noticed.
No, that's the building inspector, the illegal signs.
Oh, illegal
Over
signs?
there.
Yeah.
Well, they're almost illegal.
I already lost 2. Anyway.
Did you? This time?
Yep.
Really? Are you serious?
Let me know.
That's not right. That's just plain all not right.
Yeah, please don't take my
Okay.
signs, please.
Good. It's in violation.
Mark, any reports from other boards?
No, I haven't done anything.
Okay,
Oh,
Too big.
I thought that
Done.
was, I go there one day, Dominic, lay it down.
bills? Oh, what's the, oh,
Wait, when, May 23rd
We didn't
candidate night,
review
when,
the,
when's the election?
town
Have a nice
election
trip
is
back.
June fourth.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, guys.
Oh, the
Nice to
town,
see you.
Finished,
the
finished
one-
fields?
the one other thing is the town election
Oh,
is
yes.
June fourth, but it's, in our new senior
Yes,
center,
senior center.
Prescott.
Oh, talk about the senior center, that went well, that,
Yeah,
great
The
opening.
open house went well?
yeah. We got more people than we thought we were gonna get.
Yeah.
So, are we gonna discuss the,
I have a citizen's comment about that, and they're all bent out of shape that, yes, I don't know.
yeah, that's, yeah.
That's done, and that that was the other, they requested that that field be made into a softball field and, you know, be
It
a,
was a softball field.
was it?
They're supposed to return it back. to
Return it
being-
back to being a softball field.
So,
And that's needed.
Which
to
they
add
are.
on it.
They are. We got an email from,
can I add on this? Can I
you
answer
certainly
it?
may, yes.
So this
You're
issue,
asking him for
yeah.
permission?
yeah, because he was started
Stop me
talking,
from talking.
he was started talking and started. So this issue was brought up to the Board of Selectmen also, and also the FISC committee. So I did raise this question during in the few minutes back in the select board, when they are giving update on the FISC. So this field is, the field, all those construction is not done. So this is not the final product.
Oh, that's good.
The field will be brought back to the original condition. And then all the children can play, whatever the games they used to play.
And the adult women, the women's softball league plays there.
Really?
Yeah?
Or they
There's like
playing-
women's
Thank you,
softball,
thank you.
t-ball,
So
little league.
this condition
soccer.
is because of the weather. You know, we had a good winter. And there was one comment, you know, oh, this field was not going to be touched. But during constructions, you know, there are things can go,
Well, they had to dig a trench through it.
they have to dig a trench because of the line, you know, we cannot bring it from the other horse, is it Horsemouth or Shady Lane? The cross, the parallel road.
Horseshoe Drive.
Horseshoe,
Horseshoe.
yeah.
No, the Horseshoe Drive is back.
Right, then it wouldn't have gone through this
So-
field.
Some, yeah, whatever. that
So
one
because
is,
of the
right,
water
Western-
pressure, water pressure and other things, you know, this has to be done. So they did, you know, make the trenches. And then we had the snow, we had the continuous rain for a month. So it's not like they did a hydro seeding.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's an unfortunate.
So that's all
So
set.
it will be brought back to the, you know.
As long as it's not, I mean, it
What
doesn't
time is
look
Canada?
done, so they
What
just
time is
still are
Canada?
working on it.
Okay. So everybody understands and agrees. Okay.
So are they gonna send something to the planning board when it's done, so we can do a site plan review?
That part I don't know.
Don't hold your breath.
Okay, we have invoices. Supplies, jeez.
68, okay.
It isn't like teachers, where you have to buy your own supplies every minute?
Oh my God.
You gonna be all right?
That's the only one we have.
All about me. All about me today.
Oh, got it.
That's okay, I'll get it.
She doesn't get a green cover back? Oh, that's kind of, there's only one?
Only one.
No, not,
That's
it
it.
says all about me, so that's
So I
why.
did
Oh,
send
right.
the email to one of the invoice.
Oh, just Steve, yeah, I know.
Let's see. He is very good with the responding.
Really?
Yeah, you will get the response tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Well,
All right.
that's, okay.
So then we have, minutes. Did everyone read the minutes? And is
Yeah,
everyone-
motion to approve all the
Yeah,
minutes.
oh, hang on.
We have one edit from.
We have
Yeah,
one edit,
Sarah.
and I had
Yeah.
another one.
Oh.
I had a question, actually.
What's up with
So you had Sarah, you got Sarah's comment?
I did.
Okay.
They're into the
Hey,
next
this
series.
is, I have a comment or a question on the, public hearing minutes from April 24th on
I
page
probably
2.
did it up.
On page 2,
I feel so much better.
third paragraph. that begins with Mr. McNally.
Should it be doctor?
Yes, Doctor. The most honorable.
Yeah.
There's a third line down. There are other towns that have odor problems with these facilities. Did someone say that? Did Mr. Vignali
I
say
think
that?
said that.
Okay,
Because we've seen it in the newspapers. I know I've seen it in the newspaper.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that was a statement. It was-
Sterling had something.
Well, that's what they brought forward. Okay, so no change then. All right.
Yeah, actually, we have to say it anyway. There are other.
Any other comments about the minutes?
I guess do Sarah as well.
Then I'll be delighted to hear a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
No.
accept
Mo-
both the meeting minutes and the public hearing minutes from April 24th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Now do your turn.
Any other business? Any other citizens' comments?
Have you sent a response to the two special permits that the ZBA has coming up?
That's a good question.
We have.
I know I did one for the May Street thing.
Yeah, what about the other one?
What happened with that?
I didn't do that one. That was,
Not to
I
draw.
left that to somebody else,
It's coming up.
and nobody picked it up.
Oh,
So
What?
supposed to be Mark is supposed to do that, right?
I don't know.
what's the other property?
The one about the variance?
So you'll
The
take
one
that,
you guys approved to come back.
Toss
to the
back?
ZBA.
What about,
switch
Oh.
the,
The
they
one that-
switched the property line. What do
Oh,
you,
that's right, because I voted, I didn't vote
what's
for
the
it.
ZBA looking for on that?
The normal response that you guys.
Our recommendations or
Recommendation.
comments.
I recommend approval.
We recommend that Mark sends the letter out.
Second.
I can't, on a chairman recommendation, I don't think that's.
So,
Wait,
as
what
soon
do
as
you
we get it, we can, Toby
We'll
can
be
send it
sending
to
that
the
out.
applicant. So
I'll
that they can
recommend
see
it to
it,
her. She
and I'll
knows.
wait until the day of the meeting and then hand it to them and say, in case they have any comments.
Mark, can you write the letter?
No.
The flip the letter.
I mean,
Just-
take-
Just
take
the old letter and
old
change the
letter
date.
Yeah,
And just switch the words lot one and lot two, or whatever it was. Or whatever you guys thought that was a significant change, and make a note of that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, whatever, that's a good way of putting it, Benny.
No, I'm not gonna write the letter.
You're not gonna write that
I'll
letter?
talk to him.
Oh, you're gonna attend the meeting?
yeah, May 18th.
No, I don't do that
Is it 18th or 16th?
yet. I'll go on the 18th.
16th, 18th.
But I'll go on the 18th.
Town hall will be closed.
Why?
It's a Saturday.
Did they write us a letter
Melanie's here every
asking
Saturday.
for that, or did they just come in?
I think they sent a letter requesting it. Because we had, the planning board had to act to get the zoning board, or to make them able to get the zoning board to view it.
Right, so we decided on that, and we voted on it, but we didn't, never sent a letter to the ZBA. Is that the
Correct.
condition?
No, wasn't that sent to them? That wasn't?
Did we send something? I didn't send anything, but
No,
I know we talked
That's
about
a
it.
old
Maybe we
one.
just talked about it then.
That's our old one, we got to see. We did,
Oh,
no.
all right, then we
Because
didn't.
I didn't even see anything from,
Nothing.
usually when Toby gets it, she sends it out to us, to the board. I
Unless
didn't even
you
see
wanna
the one
send that
from-
out,
I didn't even
Melanie.
see the one from May Street.
No,
No,
they
it-
were done then, so.
Well, that was done before our last meeting, or
I know.
at our
It was
last
done
meeting.
2 meetings ago.
I'll ask Toby tomorrow. I never seen it. So-
No, you didn't send it, except, you didn't send it, right?
I don't think we should say
I-
anything on that.
He signs it, and
Yeah,
then she
they
sends it.
sent yeah.
Not, no, you did, he didn't.
No,
write
the
it.
May Street we did.
May Street.
Yeah,
I
that,
didn't, I did not do the Hartwell Street.
no, there was two of them that came in and we did one.
Okay, so who should write the letter about Harvard Street? You want
Look
to?
at me, I don't know how to write.
Well, do we wanna, can we just say we're not gonna,
Change,
and it's
really.
gonna be it's on them, we gave them a second bite of the apple, so just pay attention to what they say. I mean, it's, you know all the arguments that they're gonna come up with.
Something that when we talked about it, so that they.
Oh, we had to
were able
vote
know?
on it. No, we had to vote on
We
it, as
didn't
long
have
as
to
our
send
vote.
anything to anybody.
All right, I'll
It's-
draft something.
Typically, you
Fine.
do.
Pull it out of the minutes and
If
just say,
not-
that's
if
how we
not,
voted at
Mark,
that meeting.
Just call Chris and see if he wants anything from it.
Okay.
Usually we're supposed to get something from you, that Comcom and the, because I know we got something from Comcom.
What'd they say?
I'll just write a little something and send it to Chris.
What'd they say on that one? Same thing they said the time before?
If the ZBA approved it, they'd
The
have.
vote was
have
four,
to
the
come.
vote was 4 to 1. On that.
I was disappointed by the meeting there, because they wanted to discuss things that they wouldn't discuss or something like that. They wouldn't bring up their arguments, so I don't really know.
You're displeased with who?
When we had the meeting, and they came here asking, saying it's a significant change.
Right.
When we started saying, what is the significant change, they were discouraged from discussing the significant change, so we settled on, do you have a significant change that you can argue is valid? And we had to just depend on them that they said, yes, we know that we made a mistake the last time, we know we have to change our argument, we know we have to change what we're doing, but
But they changed to a lot that was huge.
I don't, but
Yeah.
the thing that they talked about wasn't the point. They wouldn't bring up their technical change.
Then you should have not,
But you wouldn't let them discuss it. It was you and him saying stuff behind them, and they didn't wanna talk about
I
it.
didn't say any behind that stuff. Did
Or
not
they
say-
said it. They were discouraged to talk about it, but they said, we can bring up our argument that we're gonna bring up at the ZBA, but we won't.
I did
or
not
we
say
don't have to."
anything, I was sitting there.
Here's the thing, if I can just insert, okay, when I come to the planning board meeting, I'm here as a resident.
I understand.
I'm not here to
Right.
serve anybody. So the comment that Mr. McCarthy made, you know, was really not a good comment, was not right.
What, when?
When he was at that meeting, when he came before you.
That meeting.
he
Our
said,
meeting, our meeting to
I
ask
have
for the second.
two eyes, two ZBA members, you know, looking at me. I'm not here as a ZBA member, I'm
understand.
here as a resident.
Yeah, but you're
Oh,
always.
that's okay.
Unfortunately, you're always, if you're on the ZBA, you're always a ZBA member, like with
Yeah,
me,
but
I'm
the
always DCR, even though
No,
I'm
but
not
that's,
working.
but that's not, you're wrong.
It's,
You
no, that's,
work for the DCR. I don't work for the ZBA. I don't get paid by the ZBA. I'm only there as a volunteer.
it's,
So when I come to a meeting, I'm here as a resident, not as a member of any board, not the Council of Aging, not the ZBA.
Well, I just think he has an impression, and he only knows you from the ZBA or here.
But
you
that's
know.
fine. Don't make those comments, because it's not right.
Okay.
Okay. But I don't think we have that much to say in the letter
We don't.
different.
It's like 2 sentences.
Right, I don't think there's much to it.
I'll just write a letter, and I'll sign it, and I'll send it to Chris.
Have we motioned to adjourn
Send it
yet?
to Toby?
No, I didn't.
I'll motion that you, I mean, just represent the board.
What's that?
you don't need a motion.
Okay, just represent the board, don't worry
Just do
about
it. I'll just
bringing
do
it to the
it.
board. Yeah.
Any other motions anybody would like to make?
Motion to adjourn, that's the one I want to make.
I know, that's why I, that's why I
Motion
looked-
to adjourn.
that's why
I want
looked
the
at you.
discussion on motion to adjourn.
What?
Okay, what's your discussion?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
Actually, I don't think you can discuss motion to adjourn.
You can.
Can, you
I
can.
thought you
Do I
could,
hear- do I
because you
hear-
could filibuster.
Do I hear a
Second.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.